Woojin is a bitchless man who finds himself in a mysterious forest right after kicking the bucket, and instead of losing his shit like a normal person who just died, he sits there calmly like he just walked into his father's house, as suddenly a terrifying monster lunges at him, and he slays it instantly without even blinking. He finds a glowing core inside the corpse and starts eating it as a snack straight off the body, like a man with steel balls. Obviously, this is not the first time he has been here. It all began 12 years ago when our guy started getting these horror dreams, and it is just another ordinary night when he finds himself back in that same dark forest, fighting for his life while stabbing a knife into a monster's chest. The creature thrashes and sprays disgusting fluid all over his face. Then things get even worse because the monster opens its huge mouth full of razor-sharp teeth ready to swallow him whole. Blood splatters everywhere, signaling he did not escape. And at that moment, our guy wakes up in his bed shocked, realizing it was just a nightmare. He shakes and breaks out in a cold sweat, grabs his own neck and feels the pain as if he really died, then sighs with worry because this same bad dream has been torturing our boy for 12 straight years. Outside, the sun rises bright and peaceful over the city, which is completely opposite of the hellhole he just survived in his sleep. Later, he sits writing in a notebook about the weaknesses of monsters so he can survive the next time, then stands up from the chair completely exhausted like a man who has not slept properly in over a decade, which is literally true. He thinks he cannot take even the pain from those illusion wounds anymore, and his room is full of notes and training gear, proving how prepared our Sigma is. But what really destroys his mind is the simple act of trying to sleep because he is so tired. Every time he closes his eyes in the real world, he gets sent back to that hell full of monsters. And when he loses in the dream, he wakes up in reality feeling the full effect of what happened there. Because of that, he clutches his chest in intense pain, realizing it is impossible for him to have normal sleep, and his face shows deep disappointment while he curses this terrifying situation that keeps haunting him. To avoid more suffering, our guy trained for 12 years in different martial arts and survival tactics, charging in with full fury and sword ready to face the dangers of the endless nightmare. Real men use words instead of violence, they said. Our boy never got that memo because he spent 12 years becoming the most dangerous thing in the nightmare instead. Because of all that effort, it became rare for him to lose and die there. But even when he wins the battles, he knows it still does not solve his biggest problem. The main issue is still the lack of real rest, so a doctor recommended he try finding a hobby or anything he truly enjoys to rest his mind. Well, our boy thinks about it, trying to figure out what that special thing could be. But when he looks up, he sighs and admits to himself that his only wish right now is to sleep properly. With an exhausted face, our guy thinks that just once in his whole life he wants to experience a peaceful night. But suddenly his nose starts bleeding non-stop, and out of nowhere he feels sharp pain in his chest, while coughing blood, and his vision blurs completely. His eyes widen in total confusion about what is happening to his own body, and he loses strength and collapses on the floor of his room as a large pool of blood slowly forms around him, losing consciousness and lying there as if he has reached the absolute limit of his body. But later our boy wakes up and wonders why his body feels so light, and the headache is completely gone. And when he looks at the flowers, he notices how good it feels to have deep sleep for the first time after 12 years. Because of that, he wonders if he really died and went to paradise, and keeps staring at the leaves dancing in the wind while trying to understand where he is. It is a lush forest full of life with a beautiful waterfall flowing not far away. But when he leans against the huge root of a tree, he suddenly gets chills as he recognizes the surroundings. His eyes widen when he realizes this is the exact nightmare world he suffered in for a decade. And in that moment, a sudden noise catches his attention. So he quickly turns and hides behind a large root as a monster that looks like a giant lizard passes by, looking for victims. It growls in a scary way, showing its sharp teeth and its disgusting tongue. And while hiding, our guy remembers how much blood he lost in the real world before he blacked out. Because of that, he figures his wounds were too severe and he did not survive in his own room. So he kneels and takes a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down so he can think of the next move. Then he stands up and understands that if he loses here, there is no coming back. And with a determined gaze, our boy accepts that from now on this nightmare is his new life. While watching the monster, he already knows exactly how the rules work in this world and what he needs to do to survive. Our guy thinks fast and decides to avoid fighting for now, and plans to escape toward a bright area that the monsters hate. But when he tries to back away, a strange feeling suddenly spreads in his mind. He grips the hilt of his sword tightly, confused about where that sudden emotion came from, and instead of turning away, he quickly draws the weapon and charges with full power. The giant lizard monster immediately notices his movement and turns with surprise at the human's displayed courage, and our boy stands firm and ready, thinking this courage comes from proper rest and the younger body he now has. The strange creature does not waste time and jumps powerfully toward him, ready to crush the target. While in the air, it lets out a deafening roar and falls like a meteor, showing its ferocity. And holding the sword with both hands, our Sigma feels every muscle in his body burning with energy, with a slight spark in his eyes as he focuses his mind on only two things, which are to fight with everything and to win. In one exact and devastating move, he strikes the giant lizard directly and defeats it instantly. Blood stains his clothes after the slash, and he turns his face with a merciless expression, as if the game has completely changed. And with a heavy crash, the creature's body falls to the ground, kicking up dust everywhere. First kill in the new world, and our boy is already built differently. Our guy does not waste time and climbs onto the monster's back and uses his sword to cut open its corpse, slicing a strange part and finding something glowing with intense blue light. Holding that shining orb, he stares at it trying to understand what it means, then decides to take the risk and bites into it, absorbing all the energy it holds. Afterward, he takes a deep breath while looking at the towering trees and the sun above, with eyes carrying a steady spark. He promises himself he will live no matter the cost, but to succeed he knows he first needs to fulfill one main goal before everything else. So he quickly runs off through the forest with intense focus, heading toward the light to find a safe place far from the darkness. Later, our boy is sleeping peacefully while leaning on a branch of one of those trees, and a gentle breeze blows through the leaves, creating a peaceful environment he has never experienced in his entire life. With a calm face, our guy savors every second of rest with eyes closed and a slight smile on his lips, which is basically the face of a man who has been sleep-deprived for 12 years and just discovered what a real nap feels like. Afterward, our boy wakes up full of energy and strength, and after another night of deep sleep, he looks up at the sky and prepares to walk again. At this point, he has been traveling for a month, crossing difficult paths and moving toward a new destination. While watching the forest, he thinks that just because he feels the urge to fight it does not mean he should hunt random creatures. And from behind a tree, he sees a giant bat eating its victim, and thinks it would be crazy to risk his life for nothing. Yet his heart beats faster, proving it is hard to control that desire to jump into battle. With a slight smile, our Sigma reflects that he only acts when that strange hunger hits, then charges with full power and in one exact attack instantly knocks down the flying monster in a flash. Another reason he fights is to get the shining core hidden inside these creatures, and once again our guy bites the glowing object and absorbs the magical energy it holds. While wiping his face, he realizes swallowing it gives him the ability to take in the special strength of the monsters. And later, while resting on a tree, he understands that this method has made adapting to this world much easier. Besides that, our boy checks the leather pouch tied at his waist and remembers one very important detail, which is that in his hand he sees a bronze plaque indicating that the previous owner of this body was a mercenary. The strangest part is he reads the foreign words engraved on the metal perfectly, and his eyes widen as he quickly understands the real meaning of finding that item. It clearly proves that other living people exist somewhere in this dangerous world. And he continues walking and finally reaches a part of the forest fully hit by sunlight, but he suddenly stops and his face shows extreme surprise at something on the ground. Looking at the grass, our guy notices a metal structure hidden in the thick part of the forest, which is a huge trap used to catch large predators. His face turns serious while he pieces together the information, and in that moment he jumps on top of a huge log full of hope that he might find people nearby. Coming out from behind the trees, he finally reaches a clearing, hit by sunlight rays, and looking down he sees a small wooden cabin standing in the middle of nowhere. His face fills with wonder and hope as he confirms it is a real human dwelling, and he does not waste time, so he knocks on the open door and peeks inside, asking if anyone is there. Since no one answers, our boy enters and notices something strange on the table and picks up the cover of an old mysterious book engraved with strange letters. While flipping through the pages, he discovers it is a vast record about the kingdom of monsters, and his eyes widen as he realizes he found something like a treasure. Our guy found a cheat code in book form, and he is absolutely eating. Reading carefully, he notices it details the full history in terms of this world, and his expression turns serious while he thinks having this record is extremely important to survive. But the silence suddenly breaks when he hears heavy footsteps on the wooden floor, and looking up he sees an old white-haired man aiming a deadly crossbow at him, staring angrily and demanding his identity before shooting without mercy. Our boy is happy to see another person but wonders if the old man thinks he is a robber, so he stays calm and raises his hands, explaining he only saw the house and entered out of simple curiosity. Even so, the old man does not want to talk and orders him to leave immediately, and slowly our guy agrees, showing he has no intention of causing trouble. But before fully leaving, he places his hand on the important survival guide and politely asks if he can take it, promising to pay if needed. At that moment, the old man's forehead wrinkles, and he asks with suspicion what our boy would do if he refuses, and our guy slowly moves his hand to his waist, ready to draw the sword if necessary, deciding that if the old man will not cooperate, he will be forced to become a thief to get the book. Suddenly, he jumps into the room holding his weapon, ready to start a deadly battle against the crossbowman. And meanwhile, the loaded crossbow stays aimed straight at his chest without even twitching. Observing the old man's stance, our boy thinks that although he does not know his real strength, he is sure he would win. But the old man sighs and lowers his weapon. He realizes the situation does not need to end in tragedy, and understands that a real robber would not announce himself just to read a book, so he introduces himself as Hector. When our boy sees the old man lower his defense, he relaxes and reveals his name as Kim Woojin. Though with a bead of sweat on his face, he realizes his original name is hard for people here to pronounce, and suggests just calling him Jine. Though afterward, Hector holds the book and warns that it is very valuable, so if our guy wants to read it, he needs to stay there. And in exchange, the old man offers the guide and only asks him to help with daily chores. Once they agree, night falls over the forest and our boy finally has a safe place to stay. Soon a pot of hot soup bubbles over the fire, giving warm and welcoming light inside the cabin, and the owner invites him to eat, proving that even though he seems grumpy, his heart is not bad. Holding the wooden bowl, our guy is completely captured by the smell of hot food he has not tasted in a long time. And on the very first bite, a tear falls on his cheek while he thinks the old man is basically an angel walking the earth. The next day, the old man prepares to leave, and with a distant gaze, he heads into the forest, determined to take revenge on the monster that killed his friend. Watching the tension on the hunter's face, our boy realizes the revenge target must be an incredibly strong creature, and after the old man leaves, he is left alone thinking about the dangers waiting outside. Our guy takes advantage of the free time and devours every page of the record, trying to learn everything about the world he is in. The book tells that the disaster started in the Northern Empire, where greed destroyed an entire city, and the king at that time was blinded by the desire for power and tried to open a forbidden portal to another world, believing he would find absolute truth there. But instead, he released a destructive force. After that, a dark tower full of evil eyes appeared in the middle of the kingdom, starting the real apocalypse. And from inside, it poured out overflowing flesh that took the form of bloodthirsty monsters. In just 9 years, these creatures conquered everything and turned the North into a complete demonic realm. And to avoid total extinction, humanity formed an alliance and built a massive barrier to stop the advance of evil. After finishing the reading, our boy closes the book cover and strokes his chin, admitting the information is useful, but noticing one thing that does not match. The text says that the deeper you go into this territory, the stronger the monsters become. However, our guy remembers that as he approached the light, the creatures actually got weaker, which is very strange. Meanwhile, in the forest, Hector is seen running in a hurry, holding his crossbow as if fleeing from something. In the cabin, our boy thinks about how deep he has gone before reaching that safe place, and the old hunter is breathing with great difficulty, clearly weighed down by his age. While escaping from deadly danger, behind him, a pack of demonic wolves charged with blood-red eyes, ready to tear their victim apart, and the old man pushes his legs to the limit to get away from the fast and deadly creatures. One wolf suddenly jumps to bite, but the old man slips on the ground and dodges the fangs by a hair, then tries to fight back by firing arrows while retreating, looking for a better position. But the monsters are too fast and easily avoid the attacks, with terrifying skill showing their red eyes and sharp fangs. When the old man sees his attacks have no effect, he curses in nervousness, and feeling death approaching, he gets pushed backward, and there he notices our guy calmly walking toward the danger like it is a Sunday stroll. Without fear, our boy advances holding a huge sword with a demonic red spark in his eyes, and in deep desperation, the old man shouts, ordering him to run because that creature is very dangerous. But our Sigma ignores the warning and jumps over the old man while drawing his weapon to start the attack, and Hector's eyes widen in shock, unable to understand the seemingly suicidal behavior. While in the air, our guy focuses completely on the target with the cold expression of someone who knows exactly what he is doing, then plants his foot on a tree and with powerful force splits the wood and leaps high above the forest, preparing his blade to deliver a deadly slash. The monster tries to counter by raising its large claws to defend against the attack from above, but our boy is too fast and the sword falls like lightning, and one perfect vertical cut passes through the creature's defense and slices everything it touches. In a flash, the body of the wolf monster splits in two and our guy lands lightly on the ground, and when they see their leader slaughtered instantly, the remaining wolves suddenly scatter, shaking in fear as they retreat while whimpering weakly. The old man realizes that person is a superior predator and breaks out in cold sweat, stuttering and unable to believe the strength he witnessed while standing beside the killed monster. Our Chad cleans his weapon as if defeating the creature was really easy, and the old hunter keeps staring with wide eyes, unable to speak, with blood still on our boy's face as he turns to Hector and asks mockingly if that monster was really considered strong. The veteran questions if our boy actually doubts the extraordinary power of a wolf monster, and seriously says those creatures are extremely powerful and dangerous, and Woojin just listens quietly with a calm face while processing the information. Then our guy turns to the remaining pack slowly emerging from the trees, and the wolves growl angrily, exposing their sharp fangs and blazing eyes, hungry for a bloody battle. But our boy notices there are about 40 of them, and one mistake could end his life. So with that in mind, he plans to target the second leader first to crush the morale of the whole pack. And in that moment, his eyes blaze with a brighter red, marking his burning fighting spirit. Plankter identifying the larger monster at the front, our Sigma decides who he will target first, then jumps into the air wrapped in a dark and menacing aura. The creature stares at the incoming attack with its blazing blue eyes, and suddenly the red spark in our boy's eyes seems to pierce the monster's soul, causing it to become completely paralyzed. When it understands the real danger, the creature freezes and starts shaking in intense fear, and the other pack members suddenly get confused, not understanding their leader's hesitation. Without delay, the entire pack starts fleeing to save themselves, crying in fear while running away at full speed, and in a flash, the battlefield becomes empty as the wolves disappear into the thick forest. Hector can hardly believe those brave animals retreated without even fighting. 40 wolves took one look at our guy's eyes and collectively decided they had plans elsewhere. In the end, our boy reflects that the veteran really knows how to read the situation, and the pack leader fled with a desperate whimper, realizing it had no chance against the human. When the threat disappears, the forest environment becomes peaceful again, and the two return to the safe cabin, and inside the veteran explains that the reward for the monster's remains reaches 4 gold coins, and when our guy hears the amount he asks curiously if that is a lot in this place. The old man confirms that amount is enough to live comfortably for about 7 years even without working, and our boy is shocked thinking such a weak monster carries such a high reward. With a slight grin, our Sigma realizes he just found an infinite money glitch in this new world, because he just needs to hunt similar creatures whenever he needs money to fill his pockets with gold. And at that moment, our guy decides that life here might actually be more peaceful compared to his 12 years of suffering in the past. Bro discovered financial terrorism in the demonic world. Afterward, the hunter starts setting aside some useful items like jerky and a detailed map of the region to give to his guest, and the old man holds the werewolf hide while remembering how dangerous it was for ordinary villagers, then advises our boy that he can sell it for a fair price. Our guy asks if he can really accept such a valuable thing, but the old man insists it is only fair since Woojin helped him fulfill his personal revenge. The old man extends his hand as a sign of respect, looking into our boy's eyes and thanking him sincerely, hoping they meet again someday, and the two shake hands, sealing an unexpected friendship born in the chaos of the dark forest. Our guy thanks him for everything he learned there, and prepares to continue his journey toward the unknown, and outside the sun lights the path, signaling the start of a new chapter in our boy's life. And so Woojin walks the forest path, aiming to explore every corner of this mysterious world. And while continuing his walk, a strange creature watches him from atop a large rock with unusual horns and blazing blue eyes, following every move of our guy. It lets out a soft growl, proving the danger in that region is not over yet. Finally, our boy spots the tall wooden walls of what is called Pioneer Village, and standing in front of the gate, he thinks the place is bigger and more organized than he expected. So he passes the guards and enters the village carrying all his gear. While walking the streets, he notices the atmosphere is heavy and everyone seems ready for battle, and several muscular armed NPCs stare at him with unfriendly eyes. Our guy thinks that suspicion is only because he is a complete stranger, and decides that in this cruel world, people might be an even bigger threat than the monsters, so he ignores the stares, and when he sees the sign of a tavern, he decides to enter to look for information. The place is packed with mercenaries drinking and talking about their missions throughout the day, and our boy crosses the room, drawing everyone's attention as they stop to watch him. Reaching the counter, the owner offers him a cold drink while he sets down his things, but he refuses the drink and directly asks where he can find a man named Jacob. Suddenly, a man sitting behind him turns with surprise upon hearing his own name, and it is Jacob, who introduces himself with a shy but suspicious expression. And our guy explains that old Hector sent him to negotiate about the valuable werewolf hide they killed. The merchant looked completely shocked when he heard that such a strong monster had been defeated, and its hide brought right to him. And seeing the confusion on the man's face, our boy chose not to correct him, and just let the guy believe old Hector was the real hero of the story. Jacob's eyes widened even more as he realized the werewolf hide was genuine and extremely valuable, and the other mercenaries in the tavern stared in awe, thinking old Hector was still a legend. With a sly grin, the merchant realized he was holding a rare treasure, and in that moment greed covered his face as he started plotting his next dirty move. And several thugs stepped forward and surrounded our guy, making sure he could not escape. Our boy faced the situation with full seriousness, realizing he had walked into a trap, and Jacob threw the hide over his own shoulder and threatened him, telling him to get lost if he still wanted to live. Woojin felt the betrayal, remembering how much trust Hector had placed in this scammer. But the crook just mocked him, saying it was only an investment to recover some old losses, and kept laughing while holding the valuable hide as if it already belonged to him. In that instant, our guy's eyes blazed with a bright red glow, reflecting intense anger, and he clenched his fist tightly, wondering if it was even worth crushing this trash just over a piece of fur. Suddenly, the scammer poured the rest of his drink straight into our boy's face to humiliate him in front of everyone, and one of the thugs told him to stop pretending to be smart and leave the tavern immediately. Woojin stayed completely silent as the liquid dripped down his face and the rage in his chest grew deeper, and moments later he stood up from the stool with a heavy presence that scared everyone around him. The wooden cup rolled across the floor while our guy calmly walked into the middle of the room, and the merchant thought he had given up and smiled, saying it was a smart decision. But a loud crash suddenly echoed, wiping the smile off Jacob's face and making him turn in confusion. In that moment, our boy slammed a heavy tavern structure with massive force, showing he had run out of patience, and he called out the scammer's name while the drink still dripped from his hair, and with a fierce gaze warned him that if you are going to scam someone, you should aim for the throat instead of stabbing in the back. The sly merchant froze mid-sentence as he realized he had just woken up a truly dangerous opponent, and immediately ordered his men to finish our guy off, claiming the kid clearly did not care about his own life. One thug charged forward, screaming, trying to smash our boy with his heavy weapon, but Woojin thought that taking down trash like this would not bring even a tiny bit of regret to his heart. He easily blocked the attack, and metal clashed loudly in the middle of the room, and the attacker's eyes widened as he felt that our guy's physical strength was way beyond normal, and in that moment our boy's eyes burned intensely, signaling a devastating move. With lightning speed, he moved between the enemies and unleashed precise and effective slashes, and another thug tried to crush him with an axe but missed the timing and only hit the floor, and meanwhile our guy was already positioned to end the fight. He planted his foot firmly and suddenly kicked a heavy table toward the thugs trying to surround him from behind, and one thug filled with desperation saw the table flying at him with no time to dodge. The sound of the blade slicing through the air echoed across the place as our boy carried out his work with perfect skill, and after the brutal clash the room fell into silence with traces of the battle spread across the tavern floor. Our guy's face was dirty, but his gaze remained merciless as he looked at what was left of his opponents. In that moment, Jacob broke out in cold sweat and shook in fear, wondering where this human monster had come from. And in desperation, he realized he had messed with the wrong person and might lose everything because of his greed. With a spinning sword motion, our boy broke through the enemy's defense and left marks of battle all over the tavern, charged with incredible speed, hitting the next opponent before the guy could even defend. And with one precise slash, struck a big thug who flew backward, feeling the full weight of that power. Woojin did not stop and twisted his body to unleash another attack on the remaining mercenaries in the room, and the blade hit the last thug who fell defeated as silence returned to the completely wrecked surroundings. Our boy stood in the middle of his fallen enemies, showing his blazing red eyes that sparkled like a wild beast ready to continue the hunt, with his face turning ice cold, an expression that scared even the bravest people there. The entire tavern folded like lawn chairs at a barbecue. In desperation, the sly merchant started shouting, ordering everyone to run because he realized the real danger stood right in front of them, and the few who could still move fled, shaking in fear while trying to escape the merciless warrior. The scammer slipped out through a gap and tumbled outside the tavern, desperate to save his own skin, fell onto the dirty ground and looked back trembling, trying to understand how everything turned out like this. His eyes suddenly widened when he noticed a massive dark presence appear in the middle of the quiet village, as a giant red wolf emerged snarling fiercely, and Jacob wondered what a monster like that was doing inside the village. Our guy leaped over the fallen merchant and landed hard between him and the new threat facing the creature while keeping his fighting stance, and the scammer stayed crouched on the ground, not knowing where to run. Moments later, our boy's expression changed as he carefully studied the strange beast that had been following his every move, and the wolf howled loudly and showed its sharp fangs to scare the human blocking its path. But in a flash, Woojin realized this was the scout wolf he had seen in the forest after his last battle, and with a steady gaze he asked the monster if it had traveled all this way just to meet its own end. Feeling our guy's heavy presence, the creature completely froze and started shaking intensely in its fur, and then suddenly the giant beast whimpered and lowered itself to the ground, acting in a totally unexpected way. It started panting and wagging its tail with extreme joy, looking just like a dog desperate for attention, and it jumped around playfully, showing a weird excitement that confused everyone watching, and the mercenaries stood frozen in place, wondering what had gotten into the monster to make it behave like that. But our boy just watched the scene with slight disappointment, thinking this wild wolf's behavior was honestly hilarious and embarrassing, and the creature looked at our guy with pleading eyes, hoping to get even a little attention, while Jacob and his remaining men stayed silent, stunned by the sudden change in the fierce beast's attitude. Bro traveled across the nightmare forest just to be a golden retriever. Woojin pointed at the thugs and gave a direct order telling the wolf to bite its targets, and the red wolf's eyes instantly turned serious and ready to carry out the command. With a powerful leap, it charged at the first thug while the others could only watch helplessly, and in a flash the monster quickly and skillfully finished the job, removing the threat in the blink of an eye. Our guy watched the result with satisfaction, nodding that the wolf had done a great job against those scammers. Turning pale, the sly merchant backed away in extreme fear, realizing his situation was truly desperate, and the beast continued attacking the remaining thugs to make sure none escaped, while Jacob desperately tried to think of a way to survive the mess he himself had created. But our boy stared at him with contempt, saying he was a complete fool for trying to scam him, and the scammer knelt and begged for his life, promising to follow any order our guy gave, while deep inside his anger burned and he secretly plotted cruel revenge the moment he got out of this. Suddenly, Woojin's heavy blade slammed into the ground right next to his head, causing him to shake in absolute terror, and while the scammer lay there bloody and defeated, our boy leaned down with a gaze full of bad intentions, and wondered who this NPC thought he could still fool right now. Suddenly, a memory from the past flashed in his mind. Back then, he was always apologizing to everyone in an ordinary office, and he remembered his old factory job, where the manager said the company was going through a tough time. Because he was naturally kind, our guy just accepted the excuses without realizing he was being scammed the whole time. And as the days passed, 1 week of delayed salary became a month, then 2 months of waiting just to get what he earned. He even saw his boss practicing golf swings instead of paying what he owed, but the lazy boss got angry, calling our boy a complainer and rude just for asking for his hard-earned pay. The guy even shouted that young people these days are so selfish and everyone should work together during the company's difficult times. Back in the present, our guy stared hard at the traitor sprawled on the ground, feeling the weight of his long life of hardship, then turned his back on him while the thug held his wounded face and sighed at the comfortable life he once had. The merchant was shocked by Woojin's merciless presence that showed zero mercy, and suddenly a terrifying smile appeared on the scammer's face, signaling he still had one dirty trick left. He quickly pulled out a sharp dagger and attacked from behind, taking advantage of what looked like our boy's lowered guard, and in anger the traitor shouted for our guy to die while trying to deliver a fatal stab. But our boy noticed the movement and turned with blazing red eyes, showing he had already expected that cowardly attack, and in an impressively calm way, he used his heavy blade to block the dagger, leaving the enemy confused about what to do next. Our guy said that scammers like this one are the best at playing tricks, but they never truly repent. And in that moment, the scammer's eyes widened in absolute terror, realizing he had just dug his own grave. A devastating slash cut through the air, finally sealing his fate in the middle of the village, and the traitor's body fell to the ground, proving that Woojin's justice rarely misses. Our guy's gaze burned even brighter, showing there was not even a tiny bit of hesitation left in his heart, and he promised himself he would never again let anyone treat him as weak or scam him, then took a deep breath and decided to focus on his next step in this completely unknown world. The red wolf appeared carrying a small bag of coins in its mouth, acting helpful and friendly toward our boy. And with one quick motion, the beast dropped the leather bag on the ground with gold coins shimmering inside, proving our guy had finally received the reward for what he did. Our boy watched the scene and wondered where the creature learned to act like such a skilled tribute collector, then asked the monster if it really wanted to join him on his future missions and adventures. With a gentle motion, Woojin stroked the beast's fur, and it closed its eyes, savoring the protection and affection from its master. And in that moment, the soft touch became the seal of an unbreakable alliance between the human and the monster, who were now officially partners. While looking at the creature, our guy realized having an ally like this would be a huge advantage to survive in this cruel world, and he called his companion super smart and smiled for the first time, feeling like fate was finally starting to work in his favor. Our boy said from now on they would definitely get along well as he prepared to leave the place, and so the journey continued with new challenges on the horizon. Now on a soft bed, our guy woke up feeling light with his body wrapped in bandages from the recent battles, and with a relaxed expression, our boy decided his sleep had been perfect and his strength was fully restored. He stretched his body thoroughly, feeling the energy ready to face any danger coming his way, and while washing up at a wooden basin, he tried to clean every trace of the intense fights he had been through. With a deep sigh, he felt the cold water as his muscles gradually relaxed after destroying his enemies. Woojin thought that for the first time in his life he had taken some human lives, but wondered why he felt not even a tiny bit of regret for what he did in the village. He stared into space, trying to understand if his mind was becoming too cold because of the cruelty of this world, then realized the thrill he felt fighting those people was exactly the same as when he hunted monsters in the forest. He placed his hand on his chest, feeling his strong heartbeat, and noticed a strange change happening inside him, and he asked himself if he had been hit by some weird curse, or if this change was simply triggered by his survival instincts. In the end, our boy walked on with the giant monster by his side, thinking his new life would be abundant and full of wealth, and at that moment he decided to just enjoy the present and stop worrying about the rules of his old world. Carrying the heavy hide, our guy finally reached the outskirts of the 5th Pioneer City to handle his business, and he told the Red Wolf to hide nearby first so it would not scare the locals. While walking the streets, he looked for the main headquarters of the Order Alliance, where he planned to trade his trophy for gold coins, and he suddenly spotted the organization's building, while a lazy NPC employee was yawning at the service window. Approaching the counter, our boy asked if this was the right place for hunter matters, and with one quick motion, he dropped the blue hide on the wood, creating a dry thud that immediately woke up the clerk. He said seriously that he was there to collect payment for slaying a fierce monster, but the man examined the material with contempt, saying it looked like plain dog skin, and warned our guy to stop playing around. The employee's eyes suddenly widened when he realized the hide did not come from any ordinary animal, and with surprise the clerk admitted the fur was truly from a legitimate and extremely rare werewolf, stuttering as he asked if Woojin had killed such a powerful monster alone. Our boy calmly confirmed that he had taken it down recently and was asked to wait in a fancy room while the officials prepared payment. It did not take long as another official entered and handed over a heavy bag full of gold, proving the reward for the werewolf was real. Our guy looked at the amount and thought it was enough to live without working for about 7 years, and at that moment the coins sparkled in our boy's eyes and he could hardly believe the wealth he had gained. But the official suddenly called for his attention again, seeming to have something important to discuss, and asked if our guy was interested in accepting a new special mission in exchange for even more gold. Our boy immediately showed interest and asked what the next goal was, and the employee explained that a strange monster had appeared near a quarry, causing serious problems because workers were terrified and could not mine bloodstone, and because operations had stopped, the entire city's economy was gradually collapsing. He warned that this creature was considered much stronger than any werewolf that had shown up there, but even so, the official said he fully believed the young hero could solve this big problem. Our guy asked what the name of the monster was, and the man revealed its name was the Mad Skull, with a bounty of 70 gold coins on its head. Besides that, our boy noticed he had already faced this strange monster before and remembered its incredibly hard skull that served as natural armor, protecting its entire forehead, and an aggression more deadly than any werewolf he had seen. Woojin remembered it took him a full month to overcome that challenge because he had died 28 times back then. This can't be happening. Third try already? The official asked with worry if the hero really believed he could face such a dangerous creature, and our guy stayed silent, processing the information while staring steadily at the person talking to him. then smiled with confidence and said that monster would definitely be his next great victim. Our boy arrived at the massive quarry where the Mad Skull monster was causing huge problems for the miners, and while walking along the edge of the pit, he thought about how work had stopped because of an animal considered extremely dangerous. Observing the dark and heavy atmosphere of the mine, he decided it would be best to finish this mission as quickly as possible so he could leave right away, and a loud voice suddenly echoed, stopping our guy before he could descend into the depths of the place. A red-haired mercenary said their group had arrived first, and the newcomer should respect the line of those who came before him, and Woojin gave an unfriendly look, thinking, when did monster hunting in this crazy world ever have a queue? The stranger noticed the tension and felt awkward, so he tried to change the tone of the conversation to avoid irritating the scary-looking warrior, and the captain suggested our boy just join their group so they could hunt the strange creature together and share the risk. Our guy considered the offer, thinking that waiting for the group to finish would be a big waste of time for his plans, and even though he would have to split the reward, our boy thought teamwork might be the smartest move right now. Even so, he stayed on guard, remembering it was not safe to trust strangers in a dangerous place full of scammers, and he asked why they wanted to include someone they did not know when they already had plenty of members ready to fight. With an awkward laugh, the red-haired man admitted he prioritized everyone's safety over individual skill in battle, and faced our guy, saying with full confidence that the newcomer looked like a very strong and experienced warrior. And when our boy noticed the sudden respect, he asked what made him so sure about his real strength. The group leader pointed at the red wolf while a golden-haired baddie fearlessly stroked the beast. She commented that those animals were known to be independent and rarely obeyed anyone, and said this was the first time she had seen one so loyal to a human. Our guy was surprised to realize his companion had ignored the order to hide and appeared in front of everyone because of food, as the wolf devoured the large piece of juicy meat given by the girl, leaving its master envious of the delicious-looking meal, and kept eating with complete satisfaction, not caring about the grumpy look from its surly owner. Bro told the wolf to stay hidden, and the wolf said, "Nah, there is free food." The juicy meat fell onto the dusty ground, and its tempting smell spread through the air of the quarry, and the beast looked at the fallen food, then at our boy, as if offering a feast. But Woojin got annoyed at his furry companion's lack of respect, and wondered if it really thought he was a pig, and even so, the food started to sparkle in a tempting way, making it hard for our guy to ignore his hunger. In that moment, our boy swallowed hard while his stomach growled at the food that looked incredibly tasty, and he wondered when was the last time he had tasted real food in this new world. But he quickly remembered that the wolf had just drooled on it, and it was now covered in dust and dirt, and because of that, he thought about his own dignity as a human, and desperately fought the urge to pick up the leftover food from the ground. The golden-haired baddie suddenly noticed his situation and offered him a fresh piece of meat straight from her supply bag, and our guy was completely surprised by the kindness, his eyes sparkling with joy. In that moment, he saw the girl as if a real goddess had descended from heaven to save him. After that, the group of mercenaries started entering the dark cave of the mine to begin their hunt, and while savoring every bite, our boy noticed the food was perfectly seasoned and way tastier than the ugly meals he was used to eating before. Moments later, the girl said they had not formally introduced themselves yet and decided to talk to the newcomer, and the red-haired captain introduced himself as Jonathan from the Black Marlin group, while the girl said her name was Claire. Our guy almost said his real name but chose to go by Jin to keep a little mystery. Jonathan smiled with confidence and announced they had reached the exact spot where the Mad Skull usually appeared, and at the leader's order, the trap experts started preparing heavy nets to catch the monster. In that moment, a sparkling aura covered the battlefield, causing our boy to admire the powers slowly appearing, and he saw a mage floating with green light and some magical feathers appearing around her with a circle of light emerging above an ancient book. The baddie closed her eyes and asked for a special blessing to protect all her allies in that dangerous land, and afterward the effect of the feather step magic hit the captain, covering him with an aura of amazing speed. In that moment, the blonde baddie warned our guy that she only had 3 to 5 minutes to carry out the dangerous maneuver against the target, and with green light wrapping around his feet, the group leader prepared to lure the monster toward the ambush spot, then suddenly dashed off in a desperate run. While the other group members watched him leave, our boy noticed his companion had become much faster and more agile, and he thought magic in this world was truly impressive, and Woojin wondered if he could also learn those mystical techniques if he studied under a master. But one of the men shouted a warning that there was no time to waste because the Mad Skull was approaching, and because of that, the mercenaries gripped the ropes of the nets tightly at the top of the rocks and waited for the right moment. Our guy watched the plan to trap the monster, thinking the idea made sense, but stayed serious and asked himself if this strategy would really work against such a brutal monster. At that moment, the massive creature emerged from the shadows with huge horns and started chasing the man acting as bait, and the commander shouted with full power, ordering the trap team to get ready. The monster leaped in anger, showing its sharp fangs, while the captain used his new agility to dodge the dangerous attack, and the soldiers screamed in fear when they confirmed the stone demon had fully appeared in front of them. With one coordinated move, the huge net fell over the monster, which immediately roared in intense anger while trying to break free, and in that moment all the men pulled the ropes together with full strength to pin the enemy to the ground. Captain Jonathan orders the spear team to attack with everything they have while the monster desperately struggles inside the heavy net, and the warriors quickly get into position and raise their sharp weapons to deliver the first strikes. The creature lets out a deafening roar of intense anger, showing it has only become more ferocious and dangerous. Moments later, some of the men start losing balance as they desperately hold onto the monster's incredibly heavy body that keeps thrashing to break free, and the enemy's eyes burn with fierce red light, revealing that its power is far stronger than the mercenaries expected. While watching the chaos, our boy realizes the situation is no longer going according to plan, and the danger is only getting worse, and at that moment the monster starts dragging the soldiers across the dirty floor, completely breaking their defensive formation. Jonathan shouts for them to hold the ropes tighter, but one by one his teammates fall in front of the raw strength of this massive enemy, and the creature roars again in unstoppable rage and tears through the ropes. The giant stone beast suddenly charges forward with a fast leap, completely ignoring the mercenaries trying to surround it, and the blonde baddie watches the attack with pure terror on her face, feeling she is in real danger right at that moment. The mage tries to retreat but realizes the enemy is too fast and she has no time to prepare new defensive magic. But Woojin suddenly appears and positions himself right in front of the girl to protect her from the incoming devastating charge. His feet slide across the ground as he feels the heavy force of the enemy's rush, yet he stays firm in his fighting stance, and with almost inhuman strength, our guy grabs the monster's massive tusk and completely stops its movement. In that moment, only a few inches separate our boy's face from the creature's sharp fangs as it roars angrily because a human has halted it. And in desperation, the blonde baddie warns that our guy is in danger, but he seems completely unbothered even while facing such a huge threat. Our boy glances over his shoulder and tells his companion not to worry because he has the situation under control, then stares hard into the monster's red eyes and says he knows exactly how to handle this enemy. Afterward, our guy quickly pulls back to avoid getting crushed by the massive weight of the ferocious monster, and with a fast slash he tries to find an opening in the giant creature's natural defense, his eyes showing intense focus as he prepares his next critical move while gripping his sharp blade tightly. Then our boy hits the target with exact precision in the middle of the fierce battle, thinking that even though he has grown stronger, this enemy's toughness is still surprising. And with a loud roar of anger, the Mad Skull shows it will not go down easily to a human. Feeling immediate danger, our guy quickly dodges a sideways attack that could have ended his journey, and the blonde baddie suddenly uses her power to send magical help to Woojin, who becomes surrounded by light and magical feathers. Our boy feels new strength flowing into every muscle of his body, noticing his body feels much lighter and making his fast movements across the battlefield even easier, and in that moment, a confident smile appears on our guy's face as he is now ready to finish the hunt. When Jonathan and his men see our boy's courage, they say they will help him in the final fight, but Woojin orders them to stay back because he prefers to handle this dangerous situation alone. While magical energy keeps swirling around his body, our guy charges toward the giant monster with strong determination to carry out his secret plan, thinking there are only a few key details an experienced hunter needs to know to defeat this type of creature. Even though it seems unbeatable, our boy notices the monster is basically just a giant wild boar that can run very fast in a straight line, but struggles to change direction suddenly. Using this clear weakness, he plans to push the enemy toward the rocks to ensure his certain victory, and our guy leaps with full power toward the monster while easily dodging its dangerous charges. In that moment, the creature's foot slips on the smooth mine floor, and it completely loses balance, crashing hard into the rocks and kicking up a huge cloud of dust. And Woojin realizes the magic has made him even faster, and now he can move almost effortlessly. Afterward, he studies the monster's sharp tusks, understanding they serve as its natural weapons, but knowing his blade cannot cut through such hard bones, he needs a different strategy. And because of that, our boy decides to focus his next attack on the monster's snout, which is the most sensitive part of its body. With one powerful slash, our guy hits the target exactly and blood sprays as the monster screams in pain, and in that moment, the creature's suffering only gets worse and it can no longer attack our boy with the same strength. Woojin takes advantage of the opportunity and leaps again to finally end the fight, and his blade tears through the monster's thick hide while the ground shakes from the force of the blow, and with a sharp move he delivers another heavy attack to make sure the enemy cannot stand up again. In that moment, our boy's body spins through the air as he finishes the series of attacks with complete skill, and a victorious expression appears on his face, while the dust slowly settles, revealing the amazing result of the entire battle. Jonathan and Claire immediately run out of the cave, extremely worried about what might have happened. But when they arrive at the spot, the mercenaries are shocked to see only ruins and silence covering the mine. In that moment, the blonde baddie desperately searches for their companion, hoping to see some sign that her friend is safe, and the giant wolf suddenly appears from between the rocks with a calm expression, as if nothing happened. The teammates stare at the beast, unable to fully understand the strange situation in front of them, and in the end, the monster yawns long as if the fight ended too quickly for its taste. Our guy returns to the group, followed closely by his beast companion, looking around the mine with a dirty face, thinking he cannot just leave the monster's essence after all his hard work. And afterward, our boy announces that the monster has been defeated, but the mercenaries remain speechless at the news. Moments later, the giant wolf sniffs the monster's corpse, which is now just a lifeless pile of meat on the ground, and shocked by the victory, the captain says he has never seen anyone defeat such a dangerous monster alone on the battlefield. But the red wolf suddenly lets out a soft growl, as it senses a strange presence emerging from the shadows, and because of that, everyone becomes alert while trying to understand why the furry creature is suddenly so tense. In that moment, another giant boar emerges from the dark tunnel, revealing the problem is not over yet, and the monster stares at the humans with its red eyes and sharp fangs, showing it is ready to defend its territory. In extreme panic, the red-haired man shouts for everyone to prepare for battle because another enemy has suddenly appeared. But the blonde baddie stops them and asks everyone to wait a moment because she has noticed a very important detail in the fierce beast behavior. In that moment, the monster slowly walks forward and reveals it has two tiny piglets with it that look extremely scared of the group, and the little ones make weak and adorable sounds while hiding behind their guardian's large legs. The bigger creature lets out a soft growl as if it only wants to protect its beloved family, and our guy quietly watches the scene trying to decide if more fighting is really needed, and the mother boar carefully starts guiding her children away from the chaos, clearly showing she has no intention of starting a fight. Everyone silently watches them leave while the heavy battle tension in the mine gradually fades away. Even the monster mom has more sense than the scammers in the tavern earlier. Jonathan wonders if the creature is really leaving and finally stops attacking when he realizes there is no real danger anymore. And Claire comments that maybe the monster just wanted to raise its children in that place and she feels a little sympathy for what is happening. In the end, our boy watches the family walk away, thinking that at least they decided to leave without causing any more problems. Night falls over the 5th Pioneer City, while the moon shines in the sky, illuminating the rooftops of the houses in the village. And in that moment, the lights of a local tavern sparkle, signaling that the group of hunters has finally returned from their difficult task. Inside, Captain Jonathan happily celebrates with his teammates, saying no one got seriously hurt, and the hunt was a huge success. And with a big smile, the red-haired man says the most awaited moment of any hunt has arrived, which is the time to receive their hard-earned payment. But Claire notices the bags of coins and sees the amount looks much bigger than the original 70 coins they agreed on, and the leader laughs and explains the extra amount is the result of a little misunderstanding he himself created at the delivery counter. He told them there were 2 monsters in the area, plus the piglets, making the mission sound more dangerous than first reported. And at that point, the leader announces he managed to get 110 gold coins from the contractors, which makes the whole group extremely happy. But Woojin stays quiet, thinking how they got paid for a monster they did not actually fight inside the cave, and in that moment, the sly man shows a suspicious expression and admits he told a little white lie to increase the value of what his team did. The warriors laugh and give thumbs up, saying if no one finds out, then the captain's words become true. And our boy sighs, thinking this group of adventurers is really strange and not ordinary. The red-haired man suddenly places his hand on our guy's shoulder and discusses something serious about the payment, announcing to the whole room that he has decided to give half of the entire mission earnings to his new battle companion. Our boy looks surprised, asking if he will really receive half of everything even though he only helped in the final part of the fight. But the captain says seriously that without the newcomer's help, the whole group would probably have been wiped out in the mine. Because of that, the veteran asks him to accept the money with joy because he deserves every coin of that valuable reward. And the other team members happily agree and give thumbs up, showing their deep respect for our guy's talent. While scratching his face, Woojin thinks that between the magic and the traps, he really became an important part of the mission's complete success. And holding a cup of drink, our boy realizes not everyone in this new world is bad. Afterward, the captain energetically raises his glass and declares that he will cover all the drinks tonight, and all the mercenaries start drinking and celebrating the success of that exhausting day. But our guy notices the blonde baddie walking past him and wonders why her behavior seems different in the middle of the fun. So he asks where she is going, and the girl smiles, answering that she will practice some spells. When he hears that, our boy is extremely surprised and tries to understand why she is working so hard at this time of night. And after she leaves, the mage sits on the ground under the light of the full moon while a magical energy begins to emerge. The girl closes her eyes and focuses completely, with a bluish aura flowing through the air and hidden behind a tree. Our guy watches everything and thinks maybe the girl is already exhausted after the battle. With a deep look on his face, he examines the sparkling power and marvels at that technique. And afterward, our boy thinks it might be a good idea to try learning magic someday too. He asks if it is possible to learn magic while carrying a heavy net, and the blonde baddie agrees to the idea. And our guy feels very excited and is surprised at how easy everything seems while listening to the mage, who says she has been wanting to give him a gift for a while. The girl adds that our boy saved her from danger, unlike a certain someone, and because of that, she is happy to teach him spells as a way to show her gratitude. And she complains that the group does not know how to protect their own teammates, but the newcomer is different from them. However, the red-haired man suddenly interrupts and warns that magic is not that easy to learn, and their group needs to leave the village in 2 days, and the girl suggests with annoyance that Woojin should just travel with them. The commander questions why such a powerful hunter would join their group, and afterward the leader hugs our boy and says a brave warrior like him probably prefers traveling alone, and it would be rude if they blocked his journey. At that moment, our guy thinks he has nothing else to do anyway and feels like he is just pretending to be a cool mercenary. So he decides to tell a little white lie and asks where the team's next destination is. When he hears from the red-haired man that they are heading to the 4th Pioneer City, our boy stays calm and says he was also planning to go in the same direction, and asks if he can join their caravan, then turns away pretending not to care while saying he can learn spells while traveling. Meanwhile, his two companions laugh at his obvious lie and the two suddenly grab him with extreme joy, shouting that this is a huge opportunity and they are happy to have such a strong ally. There is a slight smile on our guy's face as he thinks his next destination has finally been decided in a very peaceful way. The next morning, the caravan begins their long journey accompanied by a massive creature carrying several heavy loads on its back, as this giant beast called a Tarrasque is one of the few magical monsters that humanity has managed to tame for heavy transport. While walking near the creature, our boy is amazed at its enormous size and notices people use it instead of ordinary horses. And up front, the red-haired man gets the whole team's attention and warns they need to hurry because they still have a long way to go. When night falls, our guy sits on the ground to meditate while the mage sleeps, and he immediately realizes learning something new is very difficult, and he breaks out in cold sweat thinking there are many reasons why this is complicated. But the hardest part of all is the intense effort of repeating the same thing over and over, and he remembers his companion's lessons, realizing progress only comes from constantly repeating the exact same thing, even if it is slow. Our boy keeps sweating while thinking this part of magical training is really tough and often gets stuck at a certain level. And even so, he is used to the pain of doing the exact same thing many times just to get a result, because Woojin remembers the 12 years of suffering he endured before to survive and become stronger. Rock Lee Arc incoming. Our boy is out here swinging at the tree until his hands bleed. Because of that, he opens his eyes full of intense determination to stay focused until he achieves the success he wants. And in that moment, a small magical light flickers in the air, which is a sign that our guy is already familiar with this difficult path of effort. Afterward, he sits on the ground completely surprised when he finally feels the mana, and while the blonde baddie claps to celebrate his progress, our boy thinks it took him 10 full days before he could sense it, and confirms this task is truly complicated. The mage sits beside him and admits the newcomer is a bit slow, but that is still good because many people die without ever feeling mana at all. The girl feels very excited and reveals it is time for the second step, while she searches her bag for an important item, and afterward the teacher takes out a sparkling flask and pours a mysterious blue magical liquid into a small bowl, puts on gloves, and casually asks our guy to remove his upper clothes. Our boy is completely shocked by this strange request and stares at his companion without understanding what is happening, and a cold breeze blows through the trees of the dark forest, illuminated by the full moon, making the surroundings even more mysterious. Then the girl dips her finger into that strange blue liquid, while our guy tries to understand what will happen next to his bare back, and he asks what she is doing. The blonde baddie explains she is drawing a path to merge the energy inside his body, and when the sparkling symbol is finished, the teacher warns she will now inject the power and asks her student to try feeling everything carefully. Our boy stays fully focused, simply nods and prepares to accept the unknown power, and the girl's hand approaches Woojin's back, causing the magic circle to shine intensely and release sparks. Our guy's entire body suddenly becomes wrapped in very bright blue light, making him open his eyes wide, and an incredibly strong energy lifts the air from the ground. As our boy notices this power is on a completely different level from before, Woojin feels a very powerful energy sparkling like lightning inside his body and notices it flows thicker than blood, and the blonde baddie asks if he can finally feel the mana. Our guy confirms he feels something incredibly strong flowing through him and smiling. The mage says this is only the first step in using magic and explains there are 3 main stages, where the first is feeling the energy, then storing it in the body, and finally using the power in the end. Because our boy has successfully passed the first test, the girl decides this is the perfect time to go straight to the second stage, warning she will guide the mana toward his heart and asking him to create an imaginary space as if he is holding his breath. Our guy sweats heavily and closes his eyes, focusing all the power of his mind and preparing his body to accept and store that incredibly strong power, and afterward his companion energetically shouts that they should start and pushes a massive wave of blue light straight into our boy's back. The magical symbol drawn on Woojin's skin starts shining intensely, absorbing every drop of powerful magic from the forest, but our guy's vision suddenly changes completely, and he sees a strange monster that looks like a terrifying mix of an insect and a praying mantis. This massive green creature suddenly appears in the middle of darkness, showing a frightening form that could scare anyone, and the giant being simply stands there while our boy watches that strange illusion, unable to understand why this image is appearing in his mind. Afterward, the terrifying monster slowly turns its face, revealing its sparkling red eyes that stare into our guy's soul with intense anger. And to make the situation even worse, 121 strange eyes suddenly open across the monster's body, proving this demon is a threat of the highest level. Meanwhile, in the real world, a dark drop falls on the teacher's forehead, causing the blonde baddie to panic when she feels a shadowy energy suddenly surging from somewhere, and when she realizes something is seriously wrong, she goes into extreme shock trying to figure out what went wrong with the training. In that moment, the blue magic around our boy completely loses control, creating a dangerous swirling force that terrifies the poor mage. And in deep desperation and with tears in her eyes, she realizes her own mana is being forcibly sucked into Woojin's body. While the danger keeps getting worse, a furry tail suddenly appears from somewhere and tightly wraps around the girl's waist to pull her away from the chaos. And luckily, the red wolf pulls the girl to safety and saves her life. While our guy remains sprawled on the ground surrounded by uncontrollable power, the mage is thrown into the air while the wolf holds her tightly. And when she is carefully lowered to the ground, the girl stares at the furry beast trying to understand its sudden action. She sighs in relief when she realizes the creature noticed the deadly danger and immediately acted to save her. And in that moment, our boy's voice echoes around as he calls out to his companion while the blue magical aura completely disappears. Looking at his teacher, our guy asks if everything is okay and notices the girl looks completely terrified by what happened and is still in shock. The blonde baddie thinks about the terrifying illusion she just witnessed, which was a mental world and a clear manifestation of a person's power, as this kind of mystical vision creates its own private universe, where every person has a unique space that reflects the experiences and life path the warrior has taken up to that very moment. But the girl cannot understand how such dark and horrifying presences can exist inside our boy's mind, and with a serious expression, she approaches Woojin and insists he be completely honest about his mysterious past, then asks if by any chance our guy has ever eaten a monster core during his dangerous journey. When he hears that our boy tilts his head slightly, completely confused by that strange term he has never heard before, the mage immediately explains that they are monster crystals. Our guy confirms he often eats those glowing essences and shakes in fear. The girl loses her composure and asks how long Woojin has been doing that madness and how many he has eaten. Our boy calmly reveals he has been swallowing them for 10 years and estimates he has consumed tens of thousands of monster crystals, and seeing her panic, he asks if there is a problem with that. While the blonde baddie screams that the situation is very serious, she tries to calm herself and carefully explains what happens when an ordinary person swallows a monster core, saying, almost choking on her words, that anyone who makes that mistake usually dies immediately on the spot or turns into a strange and terrifying monster. Our boy stands tall under the glowing full moon, his eyes flashing a sharp predatory red, and while Claire fears for his soul, Woojin remains focused on the incredible power he has finally mastered. In the demonic realm, there is a turbid energy known as karma or retribution, which is the source of the mutations plaguing this world. And any living being that absorbs this energy undergoes a terrifying transformation, gaining bizarre and dangerous abilities. At the center of these mutations is a monster core, which is a concentrated nucleus of accumulated karma pulsing within the beast. R1, as our guy and his companions continue their trek through the forest, Claire remains deep in thought, clearly bothered by what our boy told her, and she cannot stop thinking about the dark priests who are a group of fanatics that worship the very monsters they should be hunting. Ever since the gate opened and karma began consuming the world, these cultists have been a plague of their own, not just worshipping the beast, but seeing them as angels, consuming monster cores to become more like them, and going as far as sacrificing other humans to the monsters. But it is Woojin's confession that is really rattling her, because 10 years and tens of thousands of cores means staring at the multi-eyed surface of a core is enough to make anyone's skin crawl, since they are concentrated poison to most humans. Claire briefly wonders if our boy could actually be a dark priest, then quickly dismisses it, because no cultist would ever be this open about it or willingly show her their mental world. As our guy casually dismantles a monster nearby, she wonders if he simply had no idea how dangerous the cores were when he started, and he holds up a fresh core and looks at it like it is nothing more than a midday snack, then pops it in his mouth and starts chewing, while Claire watches with a pained expression. I should burn my arts degree because no textbook prepared anyone for this. She cannot wrap her head around why anyone would eat something so repulsive, and apparently our boy picked up the habit by watching other monsters do it, and she warns him he has only been lucky so far, and that if he does not stop, the cores will eventually either turn him into a monster or flat out kill him. Woojin keeps his thoughts to himself, knowing he is a living contradiction to everything she is saying, which makes him question whether her information is even correct. And still, he cannot ignore the side effects, because he felt absolutely nothing after his recent kills, and the urge to fight is becoming harder to ignore. For a brief second, his eye flashes a sinister red, confirming the cores are changing him, whether he wants to admit it or not. When he gives a half-hearted promise to try to stop Claire from not having it, and she demands he quit right now with no excuses, then drops another bombshell saying that if he keeps eating them, he will not just lose his life, but will lose the ability to use magic entirely. Our boy actually looks worried for a second, but not about dying, because he is worried about the magic, and Claire is completely floored that our guy cares more about his magic than his own survival. She sighs and explains that mana manifestation is likely out of reach for him in his current state, but that all is not lost, since he should still be able to use mana arts, which are a bit different. And the term catches Woojin's attention immediately, because that is exactly the kind of edge he has been looking for in this world. The group finally arrives at the fourth Pioneer City, which is a massive hub built to withstand the horrors of the demonic realm. And the city square is absolutely packed with mercenaries and hunters from all over, creating a loud, chaotic atmosphere. Our boy is surprised by the sheer number of mercenaries, and Claire tells him to save his shock for what is actually drawing them all here. And the crowd parts as a figure of authority approaches because this operation is not just big as it is being personally overseen by a holy knight. Holy Knight Raymond walks through the square and our guy watches him pass, realizing instantly that this man is on a completely different level from any ordinary human. Woojin asks if this many people always show up for a holy knight, and Claire explains it is the name attached to the job, which is the Golden Bug. Our boy innocently asks if the Golden Bug is some kind of insect monster, and Claire cannot believe he is serious, starting to realize that outside of hunting, our guy is completely clueless about the world's most famous people. Jonathan steps in to explain that the Golden Bug was the world's greatest businessman, who was a tycoon with enough assets to be considered one of the richest men alive, but the legend came to an end recently when he died quite suddenly. Our boy asks if he was assassinated, and Jonathan tells him those are just rumors, since nobody knows the truth for sure, and the tycoon left behind 2 sons, which is where the mercenaries come in, because someone has to move the sons and their massive inheritance behind the safety of the city's inner barrier. What is a high-stakes escort mission involving a literal fortune, and protecting the heirs is the biggest request in town. And our guy finally gets it, because with that much money on the line, it is no wonder every mercenary in the city is trying to get a piece of the action. The clerk calls for the Black Marlin mercenary group, and it is finally time for Jonathan's team to step up and claim their spot in the mission. And Jonathan is practically vibrating with excitement as he grabs our boy and drags him toward the registration desk, calling this the most important moment. At the desk, Jonathan starts laying it on thick, introducing Woojin as their group's ultimate weapon and hyping him up as the man who took down a mad skull and tamed a werewolf single-handedly, and the crowd starts whispering, recognizing the nickname Head Crusher. Looking at our guy's slender frame, many of the other mercenaries are skeptical. He is as strong as the rumors say, and our boy is completely blindsided by the ridiculous title, and Jonathan just gives him a cheeky grin and tells him to play along so they can land the job. Up on the balcony, Raymond watches the exchange with piercing blue eyes, not saying a word but clearly paying close attention to the newcomer. The deal is 100 gold coins to move luggage with departure scheduled for sunrise tomorrow, and it is a massive payout for what sounds like simple labor. Jonathan is pumped up and ready to get moving, but our boy is stunned that anyone would pay that much just to have some boxes moved. And Jonathan explains the economics of the mercenary world, where in this field you are paid half for the actual work and half for the reputation you bring to the table. Our guy is still hung up on the nickname and asks what Head Crusher is even supposed to mean, and Jonathan explains it is all about the reputation he has already built, and is exactly what it sounds like, being a name given to someone with a habit of brutally finishing off monsters by crushing their skulls. Woojin just sighs, looking thoroughly unimpressed, convinced that whoever came up with that name has the absolute worst taste in the world. As the mercenaries celebrate their jackpot rate, our boy's mind is already elsewhere, and he figures this level of fame is exactly what he needs to get close to the Holy Knights, catching a glimpse of Raymond and his apprentice at their post, and thinking if he can draw their interest, he might finally have a shot at learning mana arts. Later that night, while the city is quiet, our guy's plan is already in motion, and the scene shifts to the local arena, which is a place where blood and coins flow freely. The crowd is roaring, thirsting for another brutal match, and inside the ring, 2 fighters are tearing into each other in a lawless, violent spectacle designed to entertain the masses. And our boy stands backstage methodically wrapping his hands, while Claire watches, visibly worried about him throwing himself into this meat grinder. But Woojin knows exactly why he is here, telling her not to worry because this is all part of the plan to draw the attention of the Holy Knights and secure a way to learn their techniques, and he is betting that these knights are naturally drawn to anyone who shows exceptional strength. Our guy steps out into the arena looking completely calm despite the massive opponent waiting for him, because to him this is not a challenge but a performance, and he locks eyes with his opponent with his mind focused entirely on the Holy Knight watching from above. The fight begins with a blur of motion as his opponent lunges forward, but our boy is already reading every move, and a massive fist whistles past his head, and he dodges with inches to spare, completely unfazed, then counters with a devastating punch that sends teeth and blood flying. Before his opponent can even recover, our guy grabs him by the head and delivers a crushing knee strike that folds the man like a lawn chair. An efficient, cold, and utterly dominant is all it takes as the crowd erupts with Woojin standing over his fallen foe. Another mercenary jumps into the ring screaming that he is next, and our boy looks up toward the balcony and sees Raymond watching him while casually taking a drink, so the bait has been taken. He lands another heavy strike on his new challenger, knowing that just getting attention is not enough, because he needs to make a lasting impression, and a high kick catches another fighter right in the temple. Then another knee connects and another body hits the dirt as our guy turns the arena into a one-man highlight reel. Up on the balcony, Raymond's expression remains stoic, but his interest is clearly piqued as he wonders where a mere mercenary learned to fight like this. And our boy stands alone in the center of the ring, surrounded by the groaning bodies of his victims, while the crowd is absolutely deafening. He knows that once he has beaten enough of these guys, the knight will not be able to ignore him anymore. Raymond finally turns to his apprentice Rex and gives him a simple order to go down there and fight that man. And Rex looks absolutely insulted by the command since he is an apprentice knight, and the idea of lowering himself to fight a common mercenary is clearly beneath him. Our guy watches them from the arena floor with a slight smirk because this is the moment he has been waiting for. And just as Rex prepares to step into the ring, Woojin drops a bombshell and refuses. The ultimate power move to kick off his negotiations for mana arts. Rex freezes in shock, his face contorting with rage since no commoner has ever had the guts to say no to a knight's challenge. And our boy stands before the elite knights with an unreadable expression, knowing this is the pivotal moment where his real plan begins. He states flatly that he refuses, cutting off their offer and stunning everyone watching because our guy is not interested in just any fight and wants terms that suit him. And Raymond is taken aback, his brow furrowing as he stares down the bold mercenary, since it is rare for anyone to turn down a chance to engage with the order. Claire watches the proceedings from the mercenary dormitory with a look of pure anxiety, clearly worried about what Woojin is getting himself into. And Jonathan looks just as stunned, unable to wrap his head around our boy's reckless behavior in front of such powerful figures. In the arena, a confused murmur ripples through the crowd as they cannot understand why the head crusher would pass up such a prestigious challenge. Rex is not taking the rejection well at all, screaming at our guy to explain himself and feeling insulted that a common mercenary would turn his nose up at him. And while the apprentice loses his cool, Raymond remains perfectly calm, his eyes fixed intently on our boy as if trying to read his soul. The Holy Knight steps forward and wonders if Woojin is declining because he sustained an injury during his previous matches, but our guy just gives a casual wave of his bandaged hand, assuring them he is in peak condition. And Raymond presses him further, wanting to know why he would turn down a duel if he is not hurt. Our boy lays it out plain, saying he is a mercenary and he does not move for honor or glory, but moves for money and power, and since he is being asked to fight a Holy Knight's apprentice, he expects to be compensated, so he proposes a bet to make things interesting because he is not going to risk his life in a sparring match, just for the hell of it. Raymond looks skeptical, questioning what a common mercenary could possibly have that a high-ranking knight would actually want, and our guy admits he might not be a grand figure, but claims to have an ungodly amount of money to back up his words. He produces a heavy sack of gold and holds it up for everyone to see, and the crowd erupts into laughter, calling our boy a crazy bastard for trying to gamble with a holy knight who lives by a strict code of honor. Rex is fuming at the perceived disrespect, his teeth clenched as he glares at the man trying to buy his way into a fight, and Raymond places a hand on his apprentice's shoulder to steady him, then tells Woojin they have no need for his gold coins and instead has a different idea for the stakes. He suggests they both agree to waive all liability for any damages or injuries sustained during the fight with no settlements, no legal fallout, and just a raw test of strength. And for Raymond, this is a much more appropriate agreement for a duel between warriors. Our boy is thrilled internally because with no liability, he does not have to hold back and can beat the kid to his heart's content without paying a single cent in compensation. And with a confident grin, he accepts the terms, telling them he will name his price once the duel is over, and Rex is on the ground. The two combatants take their positions in the arena as the tension becomes thick enough to cut with a knife, and Rex is locked in with eyes burning with cold fury, determined to make this mercenary pay for his arrogance. Our guy narrows his eyes and focuses all his senses on his opponent as the playful mercenary act is gone and replaced by a cold-blooded survivor, and the spectators are going wild, with some even betting their entire fortunes on the head crusher to pull off an upset. Claire warns our boy to give a signal if things get too dangerous, and Woojin just tells her not to sweat it because he will win, and his voice is flat and full of certainty because our guy has not survived 12 years in hell just to lose to an apprentice. Rex asks his master how far he should go, and Raymond tells him to give it everything, knowing our boy is not going to be an easy opponent, and Rex accepts the order and starts channeling his power with golden energy beginning to swirl around him. The crowd gasps as they witness the legendary mana arts in action, cheering for the Holy Knight's inevitable victory, and with a heavy thud, Rex plants his foot with the sheer pressure of his mana, causing the arena floor to crack and buckle. In a flash of golden light, he lunges forward with explosive speed that is a blur most eyes cannot even track, and our guy tracks the movement and realizes this kid is in a completely different league from the thugs he is used to crushing, because this is the real deal. Hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby meme. Our boy got hit and is still standing with that same unbothered face. A refined and powerful strike comes whistling through the air, forcing our boy onto the defensive as he barely manages to avoid a direct hit, and he takes a glancing blow with blood spraying from his mouth as he feels the raw impact. Realizing a clean hit from a technique like this could actually be fatal, he finds the whole situation fascinating, though, with eyes wide as he experiences the power of mana arts firsthand. And instead of backing off, he is getting excited, narrowly dodging the next follow-up with his senses on high alert. This is not just a fight anymore, but a study in a power he desperately needs to master. Rex lunges forward again with his fist glowing with golden mana, putting everything into his next move, and determined to show this mercenary the difference between their classes, and a massive impact sends sparks of energy flying across the arena floor, with the force kicking up a cloud of dust that makes it look like the fight is already over. Our guy is knocked back but lands on his feet casually, wiping a smudge of blood from his chin and looking more bored than injured, and Rex is not finished taunting him, calling Woojin a wild beast who does not understand the true power of a holy knight, clearly offended that a mercenary has managed to stand back up. The arena crowd is in an absolute uproar, stunned to see the head crusher being pushed back, and Jonathan and Claire watch from the sidelines with tense expressions, and the blonde baddie clenches her jaw while silently praying for our boy to stay safe because she knows exactly how dangerous these knights get once they are serious. Raymond watches the duel silently, not just watching the fight but dissecting it, and Rex continues his assault with golden arcs of mana trailing behind every punch, trying to overwhelm our guy with sheer speed and magical force. Our boy raises his bandaged arm to block a blow that would have shattered a normal man's ribs, not even flinching, with his eyes focused entirely on his opponent's technique, and Raymond narrows his eyes, sensing that something about Woojin's rhythm is fundamentally off. He recalls how our guy had ruthlessly crushed every previous opponent with a single blow, and compared to that raw dominance, his current defensive stance feels like he is intentionally pulling his punches. So Raymond realizes our boy's movements are extremely passive right now, as if he is not trying to fight back at all, but is instead waiting for something specific. Rex screams in exertion and pours the last of his energy into a final decisive strike, throwing a massive mana charge punch that glows like a miniature star with the air around his fist, rippling from the sheer intensity, and our guy is caught in the epicenter of the blast with dust and debris flying everywhere as the ground cracks beneath him. To the spectators, it looks like a direct hit, but as the dust clears, the impossible is revealed. Because our boy is standing perfectly fine, having seemingly caught or deflected the attack with his bare hand, without even dodging. Jonathan stands up in the stands with his face pale, asking if it is even possible for a human to do that, and Rex freezes as the absolute terror of the situation finally dawns on him, realizing his best move did absolutely nothing. His confidence evaporates in an instant, and Woojin stands there calmly with more blood trickling from his chin, but with a look of pure satisfaction in his eyes because he has seen everything he needed to see. He tells Rex that he is officially done measuring his combat power, and the playfulness is gone, replaced by a cold predatory aura as he clenches his fist while the casual atmosphere of the arena completely vanishes, because our guy is done being the target. Before Rex can even blink, our boy closes the distance and delivers a single crushing blow to the apprentice's chest, and the impact is so heavy it creates a shockwave. Rex gasps for air with his eyes bulging as the wind is completely knocked out of him, having never felt a physical force this overwhelming in his life, and Raymond is stunned from the sidelines, realizing that a normal unenhanced punch just did that to his student. Rex collapses to his knees, coughing violently, his golden mana shield shattered by that one hit, and our guy looks down at him with a dark, satisfied smirk, noting the Holy Knight was not nearly as tough as advertised. He stands over his fallen opponent, looking entirely refreshed despite the hits he took earlier, realizing the kid only survived that last hit because of the mana protection still lingering in his body, and Rex struggles to stay conscious with saliva and blood dripping from his chin as he looks up at Woojin in pure terror. The power gap is finally clear to everyone, and our boy steps closer, cracks his knuckles, and asks casually just how many more hits like that the kid can actually endure, because he is ready to keep going until there is nothing left. Then a white cloak flutters into the frame as Raymond steps between them, ending the duel before it turns into a full massacre, and he declares it Rex's loss, knowing that if the fight continues, his apprentice will not survive another minute. He looks our guy in the eye and promises to grant the request he asked for earlier as the victor, keeping his word even if his pride is wounded, and Woojin sighs, looking slightly annoyed that the fight was cut short just when he was starting to enjoy himself, since he was looking forward to testing more of those mana arts. Still, a small smile creeps onto his face as he realizes his plan was a complete success, and he has the attention of the Order Alliance now exactly as he wanted, and the arena crowd goes absolutely wild, chanting the name of the head crusher, as our boy walks off the stage because they have just seen a legend in the making. The scene shifts across the city to the massive Gothic estate of the late tycoon known as the Golden Bug, which is a mansion that screams old money and dark secrets. Inside, the sound of messy animalistic gorging fills the room, as someone eats with a desperation that borders on the grotesque, and it is Derek and Cedric, the two sons of the Golden Bug, stuffing their faces with mountains of food, as if they have not eaten in weeks. These two NPCs complain through mouthfuls about the Order Alliance taking 10 days to get them behind the inner city walls, calling the knights nothing but overpriced deadweight, despite the massive fortune they have been paid for protection. They stop eating for a moment and wonder out loud if their bodies will even last long enough for the evacuation to begin, and there is a note of genuine fear in their voices now. And as the moonlight hits them, the horrific truth is revealed as their backs are covered in pulsating, glowing blue parasitic growths. Bro damn near has a stroke looking at those things. Meanwhile, Raymond stands by a massive tree and begins his explanation of mana arts, describing it as a fundamental skill for any warrior looking to transcend their physical limits, which is a technique that allows one to treat mana as if it were a natural extension of their own body. He grips the handle of his blade, and a soft golden light begins radiating from his hand, with the true power depending entirely on the user's level of mastery over the energy. And with a fluid motion, the Holy Knight unleashes the Holy Flame Strike, and a massive arc of golden fire slices through the air, incinerating everything in its path. The echo of that devastating display reverberates through the quiet morning, sending flocks of birds scattering into the sky, and Raymond sheathes his sword with practiced ease, his expression remaining perfectly calm as he turns back toward his students. Rex claps enthusiastically with his face lit up in pure admiration, asking how anyone could possibly be so perfect, and the silver-haired knight simply nods and tells him it is his turn to try, and Rex rushes off with a wide grin, ready to give it his absolute best. Watching the display from a distance, our boy's mind drifts briefly, wondering if this is what a human looked like when they were truly and utterly devoted to something, and he stares at the cleanly cut tree stumps, pondering the nature of mana arts, finding it certainly more refined than anything the apprentice could manage. Though he cannot help feeling a bit skeptical about the need for such flashy techniques, and wonders if a simple sharp blade should not be enough to do the same job. Spoken like someone who has never faced a regenerating flesh blob. Sensing his distraction, Raymond calls out to him and urges him to focus and try for himself, and Woojin steps forward to take his place, while the instructor stands behind him, guiding his posture and telling him to imagine his muscles tensing just like they would during a flex. The key is to hold the mana firmly within the muscles, and to internalize the energy rather than just letting it flow. And our boy takes a deep breath, recalling the basic mana control Claire had shown him, and trying to find that same familiar feeling deep within himself. Suddenly, a strange spark flickers and a faint blue flame appears near his cheek, which is a sign that the energy is starting to respond to his call, and a surge of mana begins swirling around his body, catching our guy completely off guard, since he had not realized he had this much energy stored up inside him. He quickly figures out that this calm light energy must be Claire's mana left over from when she helped him recover before. As he focuses harder, the blue light begins to shift and darken, taking on a strange hue as tendrils of purple energy start snaking up around his torso, and Raymond watches closely, coaching our boy to slowly move the mana through his limbs, and suggesting that small movements might help him get a better feel for it. Then the knight's calm demeanor completely vanishes the moment the aura fully manifests, as he stares in shock at the dark swirling energy emanating from his student, and Woojin is completely enveloped in a violent purple flame dancing around his blade, which is a far cry from the pure golden light Raymond had just demonstrated. The instructor cannot believe his eyes, shocked that someone could pick up the technique instantly, but more than that, the color of the mana deeply troubles him. Raymond recalls the old teaching that mana arts take their form based on the user's inner world, which is a direct reflection of a person's soul, and he stares at our guy with narrowed eyes, wondering what kind of darkness must be buried inside someone to produce such an aura. Our boy does not seem to notice the concern at all, as a slight smirk plays on his lips while he feels the raw power with the sword, feeling almost weightless in his hands. Now, he begins a series of rapid practice swings, with the purple light trailing behind his blade like a ghostly shadow, each strike faster and more precise than the last. And he pauses, examines the weapon, and nods that it still feels a bit inefficient despite his efforts, figuring his mastery level must still be quite low. Regardless, he cannot deny the glowing purple energy looks incredibly cool, and he is already itching to test it out in a real battle. Thor's hammer energy swirling around his blade, and our Sigma is out here complaining it is slightly inefficient. High above the caravan's massive transport beasts continue their trek along the winding road, while the world below seems completely unaware of the power being awakened, and later Claire catches up with our guy with her eyes wide with amazement at his quick progress, genuinely impressed that he managed to learn it so easily. Our boy thanks her, admitting it was likely because some of her mana had flowed into him before, then asks if she is doing okay after everything that happened, and she blinks in surprise, with her expression softening as she realizes what he means. With a cheerful laugh, she tells him not to worry about it at all, viewing the energy transfer as a small gift for saving her life back then. And Woojin looks away, thinking privately that the amount of mana was far too much to just shrug off, and that he owes his quick mastery entirely to her generosity. Up ahead, Raymond remains on his horse, silently observing the pair as they talk, clearly still dwelling on the dark aura he witnessed, and Rex rides up alongside them with his usual arrogant tone, returning warning our boy not to slack off and telling him he should be more grateful for the knight's time. Our guy stares back at him with a deadpan expression, wondering why this pest keeps showing up, and figuring Rex is probably still bitter about losing their previous spar. And Rex shoots him a competitive look, then punctuates his boast with a hard slap against his horse's side and rides off with a smug grin. But immediately, his horse rears up in sudden panic from the unexpected shock, and Rex grits his teeth, struggling to maintain control as the beast bolts forward, galloping ahead, shouting for the path to be cleared, and Raymond and our boy watch him go, with the knight offering a quiet apology for his subordinate's hot-headed behavior. Then a sudden angry shout echoes from the direction of the main caravan, and Raymond pauses, with his expression shifting as he senses a dark change in the atmosphere. The sound of smashing wood and clattering supplies fills the air as someone screams for food, their voice distorted by a raw primal hunger that sounds barely human. and our guy senses the growing tension and looks toward the commotion. Raymond dismisses it, mentioning the usual antics of their high-ranking employers and explaining that the trouble likely stems from the Golden Bug sons having another tantrum, saying that ever since their father passed away, the sons have been binge-eating without rest, with their greed manifesting as a constant frantic consumption of demonic meat, and he advises ignoring them. Our boy remains skeptical, feeling this behavior goes far beyond simple stress eating, and a sense of unease settles over him as he watches the heavy carriage in the distance. A close-up shows a mouth stuffed with demonic flesh with grease and dark juices dripping down, and the speed and intensity of the eating suggests something far more sinister than mere gluttony, and gray veins bulge under the skin of the eater's face as it ripples and distorts. Woojin cannot shake the feeling that something monstrous is about to burst out, so his hand inches closer to the hilt of his blade. Then his eyes widen as a massive tremor shakes the entire caravan line, and a sharp sound of breaking timber cuts through the morning air. As the lead Taurus rears its massive head with its eyes clouded with a sudden violent madness, supplies and barrels are flung into the air as the beast begins thrashing wildly. Raymond takes a deep breath, focuses his holy mana, and leaps from his horse with his glowing sword raised high, knowing there is no saving what is left of the men inside that thing, and he closes the distance in a blur and aims for the center of the undulating mass. Holy flame strikes, and a massive pillar of golden light descends and cleaves through the monster's dense flesh, splitting the creature's main body in two and leaving a searing line through the air and the ground. Blood and dark essence spray everywhere, and despite the successful hit, the knight's expression stays tense and alert as he shouts Rex's name, sensing the battle is far from over. Rex rushes in with his sword ready to finish the job, leaping toward one of the severed pieces and swinging his blade with everything he has, and the impact shatters the ground beneath him, but the target does not stay down. The large chunks of monster flesh float and twitch on the grass, dark slime dripping from the severed ends as they begin vibrating and reconnecting, and a giant tooth-filled maw opens in the center of the regenerating mass. Raymond's eyes go wide as he realizes the creature's regeneration is completely beyond anything he expected, and he screams at Rex to fall back before it is too late. The monster reforms behind Rex, its multiple eyes glowing with hateful red light and looming over him with its massive mouth agape, and Rex grits his teeth, realizing he has been lured into a deadly trap. He looks over his shoulder just as the shadow of the beast falls across his face and a massive tentacle sweeps through the air with incredible speed as blood sprays into the sky. When the heavy blow connects with his arm, his limb is severed in an instant, his sword falling to the ground along with the mangled remains, and he lets out a scream of agony as the force sends him flying. Raymond charges forward as a massive fanged mouth looms over Rex, desperate to intervene before the monster strikes, and a spray of fresh blood erupts, and all that is left of the apprentice knight is a severed arm and his fallen sword. Our guy watches the chaos unfold with a tense expression, trying to process the sudden horror, and Claire and the other mercenaries stare in disbelief at the gruesome sight. Raymond is completely frozen, with his eyes widening as he stares at the mangled remains of his student dangling high above, and blind frustration boils over as he grits his teeth, cursing the creature's unyielding resilience, while the situation gets out of control faster than he anticipated. With a forceful swing, Raymond unleashes a strike that slices deep into the monster's writhing gray mass, with sparks of mana flying as the blade meets the dense unnatural flesh, and he activates his sacred fire slash, which is a wave of holy energy carving a massive gash into the creature and sending ripples through the beast's bloated body. The monster lets out a deafening screech with its multiple mouths contorting in agony, and despite the heavy damage, the wound begins to bubble and shift, refusing to stay open, and Raymond completely loses his composure and charges straight toward the writhing remains, desperately clinging to a sliver of hope that his student might still be alive. He tears at the mangled maw frantically while screaming Rex's name, and slender dark tentacles sprout from the ground like a cage of thorns ready to swallow the knight whole, as the monster is literally terraforming the battlefield with its own rotting flesh. Our boy watches the holy knight struggle, his eyes narrowing as he realizes standard holy magic is not enough to put this thing down, and he clenches his jaw, knowing he cannot stay on the sidelines for long. While Raymond is completely consumed by grief and digging frantically through the flesh, the monster's tentacles lunge toward him, and Woojin suddenly moves in, grabbing a dazed Raymond and pulling him away from a lethal strike in a blur of speed that catches the knight completely off guard. They slide across the dirt, narrowly escaping the reach of the monster's thrashing limbs, and our guy keeps his focus on the beast, tosses the knight aside, and steps up to begin the battle. And in his eyes there is no longer a majestic holy knight to be seen, but just a broken man sprawled helplessly on the ground. Panic spreads through the group as they realize their strongest fighter is struggling, and the fiend continues to grow and writhe its surface, a chaotic mess of pulsating lumps and glowing red eyes, no longer recognizable as the two men it once was. A roar tears through the air as the monstrosity fully stabilizes its new form, which is a chilling reminder of what happens when human greed is fueled by demonic corruption. Our boy stares into the monster's eyes, and a dark thought crosses his mind, because he survives by eating demon cores, and for a split second, he wonders if this grotesque fate is his own future. He pushes the fear aside, draws his massive blade as the monster's tongue lashes out, and gets to work, because survival comes first, and that means putting this abomination out of its misery. Wujin dives into the chaos, dodging a barrage of spear-like tentacles that punch holes into the ground where he stood a second before and looking for an opening in the beast's chaotic movements. And he brings his sword down in a heavy arc and carves through a thick layer of gray flesh, but the sheer mass of the creature makes every hit feel like cutting through solid rubber. Even as the blade passes through, the flesh begins fusing back together instantly, and it is a battle of attrition. He knows he cannot win with simple physical strikes, and our guy maneuvers through the gaps in the monster's defense with his eyes scanning for a core or a vital point, while a massive toothy maw opens wide. The monster's hunger seems bottomless and mirrors the gluttony of the sons who birthed it, and he delivers a horizontal slash that bites deep into the creature's side, sending a spray of dark fluid into the air as he tests the monster's limits, and sees just how much damage it can ignore. He slides back with his blade trailing in the dirt, watching the monster already close the wounds he just made, and our boy curses under his breath with his eyes fixed on the pulsating heart of the mass, needing a way to keep those limbs from reattaching if he is going to land a killing blow. Then a harpoon streaks through the air, its tip gleaming with cold metallic light because someone else is finally joining the fight, and the mercenaries launch a coordinated attack, their harpoons and ropes sinking into the beast's soft flesh and pinning the monster's limbs to the ground. Jonathan roars to our guy, letting him know they have his back, and despite the paralyzing fear, they found the grit to stand by their hunter. And Claire steps forward with her magical tome glowing in brilliant blue light, her fingers hovering over the ancient script as mana gathers around her. A wave of binding magic erupts from her position and washes over the battlefield, and the blue energy begins coating the severed pieces of the monster, and the severed limbs struggle to move as the magical residue acts like a spiritual anchor that prevents them from merging back with the main body. The beast regeneration is finally being countered, and the group tries to stop the severed parts from reconnecting. And Wujin glances back with a focused expression, smiles slightly, and thinks it is not bad because not everyone here is completely terrified. From above, thick dark liquid drips down and hits the ground, creating ripples with every drop. The creature's face bulges while its blazing red eyes stare ahead, and black liquid flows from its eye sockets as thick tentacles crawl across its head. And our guy narrows his eyes and says its energy has changed. The upper part of the creature's body twists in an unnatural way, and from its shoulder another twisted face emerges with its mouth wide open, and many disgusting faces sprout one after another from the creature's shoulders as it roars, surrounded by red energy with voices screaming out that those are the children of the golden bug. Long black tentacles burst out from the creature's body in different directions as it stands with both arms raised, whipping through the air at incredible speed and leaving blurry trails behind them. And one powerful tentacle slams into the ground and spreads as a dark mass while a warrior gets knocked back, shouting. Several long tentacles rise again from the creature's shoulders, and at their tips, fleshy lumps form and writhe in the air, and our boy leaps into the sky with his cloak flowing behind him and reaches his hand toward the cluster of tentacles ahead. The creature's body fills the view while its surface moves and bulges with thick flesh shifting inside it, and Wujin grips his sword tightly with both hands and brings it down. And when the blade hits the creature's body, chunks of flesh explode outward. A twisted face embedded in the creature's body suddenly opens its mouth and roars as if warping the space around it, and our guy blocks a whipping tentacle with his sword as it collides with the blade and dark liquid sprays out, then stomps hard on the ground, spreading dust and debris from the impact. Jonathan clenches his fist and shouts, asking if our boy is okay, and our guy turns and replies he is fine, but warns them to be careful because the hideous creature has grown even stronger. The creature stands with its massive mouth wide open, exposing rows of teeth, while a voice asks what happened when the faces of the golden bug appeared, and what they should do now, and our boy glances back with a sharp look and says they just need to keep slicing it, because if they continue cutting in the end, only the internal core will remain. The problem though is how fast it regenerates, and Jonathan tightens his grip on his spear with a confident smile, saying if that is the problem, do not worry, because just as it grew stronger, they have also learned its attack patterns. Wujin smiles slightly and says if that is what he thinks, then raising his sword surrounded by purple energy, he declares he will slice it however he wants using his mana arts, and the creature approaches with blazing red eyes and its huge mouth open wide, while our boy charges toward it with a shout. He swings his sword in a wide arc with trails of purple energy following the blade, severing the tentacles one after another as blood sprays, then spins his body in the air and brings the sword down again, as the purple aura cuts through the creature's flesh, leaving deep wounds on its surface. Our guy's blade splits the upper part of the creature's body as blood explodes outward and a voice screams to stop it from regenerating, while the creature lets out a twisted scream, and a series of fast slashes draws diagonal lines across its flesh as its faces contort and dark liquid flows from its eyes. Up close, its twisted face widens its eyes and opens its mouth, while Wujin continues slicing through its body, then drives his sword downward with both hands as a shining blue core appears beneath the torn flesh, with dark tentacles reaching for it. Our boy stares ahead with blazing red eyes and a calm expression, and while saying it is over, he cuts the exposed core with a downward strike as purple energy splits it and blood bursts outward. And Jonathan grips his spear tightly while panting as Claire stands beside the injured Raymond with a shocked expression, while he sits exhausted with his armor broken. The pieces of the shining blue core scatter and fall to the ground, bouncing and spreading around, and one warrior raises his fist and shouts that they won. And while the others cheer and celebrate, someone says, "Imagine they defeated such a terrifying creature, and that their reputation will definitely rise." Our guy stands with his cloak hanging from his shoulder while looking ahead, and he lowers his gaze with a serious expression as his eyes focus downward at a small piece of the blue core lying on the ground in front of him, with thick liquid dripping from its surface. Our Sigma is already eyeing that core like it owes him something. A warrior runs over with a wide smile and shouts that our boy actually survived too, and nearby a woman with long red hair places her hand on a tree. While looking at the group gathered in the distance, the red-haired woman leans against the tree, places her hand on her chest, and says the children of the golden bug, Derek and Cedric, in the end are no different from their father, and adds softly, "What a pity." She lowers her gaze slightly, closes her eyes, and frowns faintly while wondering how they ended up so useless. And from behind the tree she watches Woojin walking away while holding the shining blue core and wonders if that is the man who fought the hideous creature. Our Sigma sits with his legs crossed beside a small fire while holding a cloak, and behind him there are tents faintly glowing inside the forest. He raises a shining blue core and stares at it with intense focus, then brings it to his mouth and bites down, baring his teeth as he closes his eyes tightly with a strained expression. One man lies gagged and bound on a stone table, his eyes widening in fear, and our boy realizes this is another memory. Our Sigma appears like a shadow above the bound man while staring at him in surprise. The man looks up in terror while the red-haired masked woman stands beside him and says that their father, the golden bug, died because of his own incompetence. That woman stands beside the bound man inside the stone room and says to show results if he wants to live, while he struggles to speak despite the gag. She stares at the man while holding a small vial and orders him to show how special he is. While the man desperately groans, the red-haired woman smiles while holding the vial with shining blue liquid and says she will see if he is worthy to join her. She forces the shining liquid into the bound man's eye, and dark veins spread across his body as he screams despite the gag, with black tentacles bursting from his eye and blue liquid flowing down his face. Our boy Chad's face tightens, his eyes widen and his teeth grind while sweat drips down his cheek. Saliva sprays from our Sigma's mouth as he lurches forward and immediately runs toward an open part of the forest, while a curved trail of fire blazes behind him. He falls to the ground and catches himself while liquid drips from his mouth onto the floor, then leans forward while wiping his mouth and panting, saying that eating an internal core rarely grants monster power or causes absorption of its memories. Our boy looks down while saliva and sweat drip from his face and thinks these internal cores are full of side effects. He walks through the forest while wiping his mouth and wonders if the memory came from one of the golden bug's children, who became an abomination after the liquid was poured into their eyes. Our Sigma recalls the small vial with blue liquid dripping from its tip while sweat continues flowing down his face, and he says that abominations are created when people are influenced by karma, so he wonders if that liquid carries karma. A red-haired woman in dark clothing holds a small container in her hand, and our Chad thinks about whether it is that woman. He narrows his eyes while sweat drips down his face and says the word dark priest just under his breath. Claire stands behind our Sigma in the forest and says they need to leave now. Our Sigma turns to her with sweat on his cheek while Claire asks what happened and tells him not to say he ate another internal core. Our boy slightly lowered his hand while looking to the side, thinking whether he should tell the others and how to explain seeing a monster's memory as a side effect of the internal core. He walks forward with a calm expression while Claire follows behind him, and he thinks that revealing unnecessary things might cause misunderstandings, so he says not to worry because it is nothing, and decides to keep it hidden for now. A dark figure stays slightly hidden behind a tree in the forest, while strands of Claire's hair are visible in front. The red-haired woman slightly tilts her head with a calm expression. Our Sigma walks forward while slightly raising his hand, and Claire follows beside him while tents are visible behind them. The red-haired woman narrows her eyes while peeking from behind the tree. Raymond and Jonathan stand beside Claire while Raymond gestures with his hand while speaking. The red-haired woman leans against the tree while bringing a gloved hand near her lips and says, "Our boy must be planning something." And to think a person who eats raw internal cores is doing the same thing as the Order Alliance. She gently strokes her lips with her gloved finger while saying how intriguing. The red-haired woman raises her veil with both hands while watching the group walking away in the distance, and wonders when she faces him again whether he will be her ally or her enemy. A towering stone cliff stands behind several new graves with swords embedded in the ground as markers. Raymond grips the hilt of his sword tightly while another sword remains embedded in a grave. Claire presses her hands together in prayer while our Sigma stands behind them with the others. A shadow covers a grave with an embedded sword while Raymond says he offers his prayer to E, the god of harmony. Raymond stands with both hands on his sword while telling Rex he was the bravest of all and that he offered his entire life for peace. The view widens over the graves and forest while he says, "May you watch over him so his passing is not in vain." Our Sigma stares ahead with a calm expression, thinking that even though they only fought once, Rex still looks so young and it is such a shame. Raymond glances back with a sharp look and suddenly raises his head toward a shining shadow of a wolf standing on top of a high rock, while someone shouts about a red wolf. The red wolf stands firmly on the rock, its blue eyes glowing and its claws raised while a low growl echoes. Raymond kneels on one knee while gripping his large sword embedded in the ground, his cloak flowing as he gives thanks. He kneels with one hand on his chest while holding the sword, and our Sigma beside him looks down and asks what he is suddenly doing. Raymond replies that he is expressing his gratitude to Ea, the god of harmony. The red wolf raises its head and opens its mouth in a long yawn while breathing out, and Raymond says the red wolf is considered the closest companion of Ea, the god of harmony. Raymond remains with eyes closed, one hand on the sword and the other resting on his chest, while saying the appearance of the red wolf means Ea is easing their sorrow. He suddenly turns to our Sigma while the sword remains embedded, and our boy steps back in surprise while saying it is just his pet. Raymond shouts blasphemy, asking how dare he call a red wolf just a pet, and adding that a monster like this is not a type that can be tamed. Our Sigma stands calmly beside Raymond while holding the red wolf's paw and says, he only killed a werewolf, and since then it has been following him. Raymond tilts his head with a confused expression while saying what kind of person this is, then looks to the side with a serious gaze. The red wolf stands beside a stone grave with its eyes slightly closed and its mouth slightly open, while a sword is embedded straight in the ground nearby. Our Chad glances back slightly while listening as Raymond asks if he may request a favor. Raymond stands with the red wolf behind him looking ahead while saying if the red wolf has no name, please name it Rex. He faces ahead with a firm expression while saying first that taking a monster considered at the level of their order and calling it a stray dog is somewhat inappropriate. Our Sigma stands quietly with his head slightly lowered, while Raymond holds his sword and says that second, with the sole goal of cleansing the entire demonic realm. If Rex's will to fight evil does not end here, one hand grips a blood-covered sword against a dark surface, while Raymond says Rex did not let go of his sword until the end. Raymond narrows his eyes while holding the sword vertically in front of our Sigma, and says to let that red wolf continue its legacy under the name Rex. Our boy looks up with a neutral expression, while the red wolf's tail passes behind him, and he thinks about Rex's legacy. The red wolf slightly raises its head with eyes slightly widened while our Sigma looks at it and asks if that is okay with you. The red wolf tilts its head to the side, narrows one eye, and a soft sound comes from its mouth. Our Chad tilts his head slightly and smiles gently, while saying in that case he will name him Rex. Raymond faces our Sigma with softened eyes and a gentle expression while saying thank you. An old man approaches using a cane, and Raymond suddenly turns with wide eyes saying, did this old man arrive at the wrong time? The old monk walks forward using his cane while another monk follows behind, and Raymond faces him and says, Elder. Our Sigma looks at the approaching elder with a serious expression, thinking if he is an elder that means he is one of the highest authorities in this place. The old monk stands straight, surrounded by a shining golden aura while being introduced as Elder Bao of the Third Pioneer City. Raymond stands facing the old monk with one hand near his chest while people gather behind him, and he says, Welcome, Elder. Elder Bao slightly leans on his cane while facing Raymond and says he apologizes for visiting at this time of morning. Raymond replies it is fine and asks what brings him here. Elder Bao glances back with a serious expression and says he came because an investigation is needed regarding the death of the Golden Bug's children. Raymond looks at the elder and says wait, while our Sigma stands with narrowed eyes in front of the others looking at the elder. Raymond says are they still suspecting that their deaths were caused by these people? And our Chad thinks wait, are they suspecting them? That makes sense too since the clients died while they were transporting their massive wealth, and it is natural for mercenaries to be suspected. Raymond faces the elder and asks if his evidence is not enough, and the elder replies no, it is sufficient. Elder Bao slightly turns with a firm expression and says however, then stands beside Raymond while facing our Sigma and says how they ended up becoming abominations still has no clear explanation. Elder Bao slightly bows while gripping his cane tightly and facing our Sigma and says he smells the stench of a dark priest in this entire incident. He turns to our boy while looking down and asks what he thinks. Our Sigma stares ahead with tense eyes as his expression grows heavier and he thinks this person knows his name, then faces ahead and asks if they suspect him of being a dark priest. Elder Bao stands motionless with a calm expression and stays silent. The scene shifts to an arena known as the Third Pioneer City Vitra Arena, where the interior of the empty arena is vast with wooden platforms, stairs, weapon racks, and lit torches on the walls. Our Sigma stands ahead while the monk stands behind him holding a cane and says people as strong as him usually show talent from childhood. Elder Bao stands and says but our boy suddenly appeared one day and achieved one massive success after another, then lowers his head and says that on top of that he happened to get involved in the abomination incident. He stands with his hands behind his back while our Sigma looks down at him and says he does not find that suspicious even to himself. Our Chad glances back slightly and thinks it seems people here monitor who the strong ones are, and in that case it makes sense why he looks suspicious, especially since he is not from this world. His blazing red eyes narrow with tension and intense focus while thinking. Elder Sigma stands not far away facing the Elder and Raymond while speaking and saying what does that have to do with him sparring with the Elder and that he does not understand it. Raymond looks at the Elder while speaking and says he is right and that besides, this mercenary just came from a battle, so his body's condition is not yet fully recovered. Our Sigma stands with his back turned and thinks he agrees. The elder calmly faces him and asks what, then says he refuses to cooperate with the investigation. Raymond freezes with wide eyes while standing beside our Sigma and thinks this is extremely unreasonable. Our Chad looks to the side with a tense expression while thinking what he should do, because he cannot just beat up someone who suspects him of being a dark priest just because he is strong. And besides, it would be too troublesome to fight an old man. The elder stands with his cane resting beside him while saying it seems our boy has many thoughts and asks if he is worried because he is old. He stands straight while surrounded by swirling golden aura and says he appreciates the concern but it is not necessary, and that the reason he rose to the position of elder is only because of his own strength. His sandal stomps loudly on the ground and Elder Bao approaches, pushing his shining palm toward our Sigma while saying it is only because of his own strength. Our Chad's head snaps back and he grits his teeth while thinking it is so fast. Elder Bao's hand slices through the air while his rosary sways, and his attack lands with immense force while a swirling shockwave envelops our Sigma as he uses the Great Bell Strike. Our boy's face twists in pain as blood sprays from his mouth and his body crashes into the wall beside a blazing brazier as debris scatters around. Raymond looks ahead with a shocked expression and shouts our Sigma's name, while adding that the monks of Vitra are martial artists with extraordinary combat strength. Our Shad stands up from the ground while covering his mouth with his hands surrounded by dust, and Raymond adds that the elder is the strongest among them. Elder Bao stands ahead surrounded by swirling golden aura while raising one fist and declaring not to let your guard down even for a second, and he adds that Raymond is being a bit biased. He slides low to the ground while saying if Raymond continues siding with our Sigma, this old man might get jealous and lose control of his strength. While our boy steps back with blood in his mouth after being hit in the stomach, Elder Bao's palm strikes our Chad's body hard, but our Sigma pushes the elder away with his hand in the middle of the attack. The elder stands with fingers slightly curled while surrounded by golden aura. Our Sigma stands with blood in his mouth and looks ahead while thinking that the old man grabbed the blade with his bare hand and it hurt so much, and he also hit the exact spot where the abomination struck him. His eyes suddenly widen in shock while thinking, no, wait. Our Chad grips his sword tightly and examines his body with a surprised expression while thinking his body has completely healed and the wounds from the abomination fight should have kept him bedridden for at least 2 weeks. A memory appears where the monster's massive arm collides with his raised sword and the impact explodes outward. Our Sigma stares at his hand with blood on his lips and thinks even the damage from the attack earlier is slowly healing. And then the thought hits him like a freight train. A hideous wide-open mouth seems to loom behind him while he faces forward with blazing eyes, thinking he has gained the abomination's regeneration ability because he ate its core. He tilts his head slightly with a grin as the idea hits him, and thinks jackpot. He attacks the elder with his sword, but the elder raises his arm and blocks the strike, causing our Sigma to get pushed back. Elder Bao clenches his fist while surrounded by golden aura and says, is this what he meant by being injured from battle? And that our boy really knows how to energize an old man. He smiles slightly under his eye covering while thinking he would like to spar with him more if allowed, but he cannot act like a kid. His palm strikes our Chad's chest hard and debris scatters while he says now that he has confirmed the rumors about his strength, it is time for the next step. Elder Bao raises his hand to his eye covering while surrounded by golden aura and says that means he will use the mind's eye. A shining circular symbol appears on the elder's eye covering as golden aura envelops his head and body. Our Sigma stares ahead with wide eyes while a large shining circular symbol glows in front of him. Elder Bao presses his hands together in front of his chest as black lines flow from his eyes, and he thinks that leaving the self is the way to truly become one with the self, and that he sacrificed his 2 eyes to open his 3rd eye through the mind's eye. Our boy faces the elder while a large shining circular symbol glows between them, and the elder stands calmly while thinking this is the eye of the heart that pierces all the way to the depths of the soul. Our Sigma's face becomes covered in deep blue color while staring ahead, and meanwhile the elder thinks now to show me whether our boy is a dark priest or an emerging new light. A green monster with long limbs and an open mouth crouches inside dark emptiness, and another creature with long legs looms in the darkness. A hideous surface covered with countless eyes with red slit pupils stares out intensely. A shining golden circular symbol glows in the darkness while a powerful voice commands them to be gone, and the monsters retreat. A foot wearing a sandal steps into shallow water, creating ripples as it advances. Elder Bao stands in a misty part of the forest and slightly turns with quiet alertness. Turon. His face becomes tense as sweat forms and he says, my god, what is this? He stands surrounded by many shadowy monsters with blazing red eyes standing around him. And while our Sigma's mental world forms, our Chad suddenly taps the elder's shoulder, causing his body to jolt in surprise. Our Sigma leans down slightly while slightly raising his hand toward the elder and asks if he is okay, noticing he cannot feel Elder Bao's mana. The elder pants while sweat drips down his face and says a mental world beyond imagination and directly terrifying, and that this is the first time he has seen something like this. The elder's face is full of sweat and has a tense expression while thinking that even so his mental world has not completely collapsed yet, which means he is not a dark priest. Our Sigma stands facing the elder while the elder presses his palms together on his chest, and our boy calls out to him, Elder Bao slightly turns with palms pressed together and calmly says he apologizes and asks our Sigma to forgive this old man for his rudeness, explaining it was very important to prove whether he is a dark priest or not. Our Chad looks at him with confusion and says, "What is this sudden change?" Our Sigma stands with Raymond behind him and a girl in the open doorway, while a voice says it is because they want to entrust him with a mission related to the dark priests. Our Chad turns to the side with a serious expression and sees a girl stepping forward on the ground while saying it is nice to meet him. The girl stands facing ahead with a calm expression and adds that her name is Cindy, the youngest daughter of the Golden Bug. The forest stays silent while leaves dance gently and rustling echoes around the trees. Cindy walks ahead on a forest path while our Sigma and the Elder follow behind her, and she says this is not the first time an abomination has appeared. She looks ahead while saying recently the third pioneer city has become the center, and many people are turning into abominations while even the surrounding forests are quickly getting corrupted and becoming part of the demonic realm. Our Sigma glances to the side with a tense expression and his eyes suddenly widen as Cindy says they have arrived. Our boy and the others look ahead and see several figures in white cloaks kneeling around a massive purple rift core emitting shining light in the middle of the forest. Large pulsing mass with many tentacles protruding and a shining core spreads outward, and they recognize it as a rift core, something that spreads the demonic realm and turns nearby areas into part of it. 3 cloaked figures kneel with hands pressed together while praying for mercy and asking for grace to be granted to this land. While surrounded by golden light, they remain kneeling with hands pressed together as shining particles float around them and they offer their prayers. 3 masked figures in black cloaks extend tube-like devices toward the rift core while spraying water on its surface. Several cloaked figures continue kneeling and praying while the masked ones sprinkle water on the throbbing rift core surrounded by bright golden light. Our Chad stares ahead with a focused expression saying cleaning a rift core does not look like an easy task, then slightly lowers his gaze while saying, but should not the power of karma weaken the farther you get from the Northern Empire? Cindy replies beside him, yes, that is right. Our Sigma turns slightly with narrowed eyes while saying that if something like this is happening, Cindy faces ahead with a firm expression and says yes, which means someone is behind it. While our boy stares ahead with a firm expression while the thought settles in his mind. A dark priest. Cindy walks ahead while our Sigma follows behind her and says if the number of abominations and rift cores keeps increasing at this rate, the third pioneer city that they worked so hard to build will be in extreme danger. The Elder walks beside our Chad while saying, and in the worst case, they might completely lose the entire city. He stands holding his cane while facing our Sigma and Cindy on the forest path, and says that is why they urgently searched for the Dark Priest's hiding place and finally identified the suspected location of their base. So in that case, he looks at our boy and asks will he join them in the extermination operation in 2 weeks, while Cindy stands nearby and adds they will pay the highest level of compensation. Our Sigma stares with focus while thinking, so this is why they wanted to recruit him. And he looks at the Elder and Cindy while thinking of Elder Bao, the Elder of the third pioneer city, and Cindy, the only remaining heir of the Golden Bug. His lips curve into a slight smile while thinking of a request from such powerful people, and he wonders if they have finally acknowledged him. Our Chad looks ahead with a confident smile on his face as dark clouds spread across the night sky and a vast grassy plain stretches around while Tarasques walk along the path. While a voice says not to mention that anymore because she was so worried. Our Sigma walks beside Claire while the mage says if he gets accused of being a dark priest, death is definitely the outcome. She continues and says she heard they torture you intensely, and our boy glances to the side with a tense expression while a metal torture device with spikes appears behind him in his mind, and he thinks they will torture him. Claire presses her hands together with an energetic expression while saying they have finally arrived. Our Sigma freezes slightly and looks ahead with wide eyes and says so that is the distant city surrounded by tall walls and open plains visible, known as Wall City Yurgis. A massive city spreads out and she says it cannot be compared to the pioneer cities, but it is the safest place in the world. Our Chad looks ahead with a calm expression thinking if he can live here someday, then calls out to Raymond who stands beside the Tarasque and realizes it is not the right time yet. Raymond suddenly turns with a serious expression while several people sit and lean against the Tarasque while resting on the ground, and a voice says everyone should rest first before they continue. Lord Jonathan approaches our Sigma with a surprised expression and shouts what, asking if he is really leaving for the third pioneer city. Our Chad replies yes, he has a new mission, and Jonathan looks at him and says but that is so sudden and adds it is normal in this job for everyone to go their separate ways after a task, but it is still sad. Our Sigma looks ahead with a calm expression and says he is right and asks what Jonathan will do now. Jonathan grins and gives a thumbs up while saying he will probably drink first, then drink some more. Our Chad turns to Claire while holding his bag and asks what about her. Claire closes her eyes with a slight smile and says she will probably look for work again, and our Sigma asks if the money she earned is not enough. Claire faces our boy with a gentle expression while looking at him and says the earnings are fine but it is still not enough for the money she needs to go to the Magic Tower. Our Sigma looks at Claire slightly surprised and asks Magic Tower. Claire turns slightly with a gentle smile and says she calls herself a mage, but in truth she only learned basic knowledge, so her ability is barely above beginner level. She walks beside our Chad with a soft expression and says she is not struggling to live right now, but she has become greedy and wants to learn higher level magic. Claire stands smiling while a massive library-like structure rises behind her, and she says that is why she is saving money to enter the magic tower and learn higher level magic. Though our Sigma looks to the side with deep thought and thinks the magic tower is like a magic university, and saving money just to study is impressive. He tilts his head slightly and murmurs softly, then stands and opens his bag while Claire beside him watches carefully. Our Chad raises a small tied pouch in one hand and looks at Claire with a slight smile while asking if this is enough, and the pouch opens slightly, revealing coins inside. While he says this should be enough to help her reach the magic tower, Claire raises both hands with a shocked expression and says what? That it is impossible, and she cannot accept this. Jonathan stands behind Claire with a serious expression, while our Sigma holds the pouch and Claire looks at him while saying she cannot just take this for free. Our boy faces her and says he is not giving it for free but because he owes her a favor, and to consider it a gift. Jonathan scratches the back of his head with a wide smile and says that is huge. Claire looks ahead with a hesitant expression and says but for her, then looks at our Sigma with wide surprised eyes while our Chad reaches out and places the pouch in her palm. Claire turns to our Sigma with a slight smile and says they will meet again, then stares ahead with wide eyes and blushing cheeks while staying silent. Up close, her lips are pressed tightly together while her cheeks remain flushed, and Claire holds our Chad's cloak from behind. She holds the cloak while standing close to him under the trees and says thank you, then looks ahead with a firm expression and says she will return to repay this favor. Our Sigma turns with a calm expression while his eyes soften in the silence. But he faces the group and says take care everyone. Claire holds the pouch tightly to her chest while Jonathan waves beside her with closed eyes. Our Chad turns away while his cloak moves slightly and he walks forward with his head lowered while the group stands behind him watching. Rex lies stretched out on the grass while Raymond stands nearby looking at him with softened eyes while gently calling his name. Raymond has a slight smile and relaxed eyes while looking ahead as our Sigma walks toward the city with Rex beside him under the setting sun. And Raymond says take care too, Rex. The scene changes and our Sigma arrives at the large gates of the third Pioneer City. He looks around observing the movement of the guards at the entrance. On top of the wall, Cindy looks worried and asks the elder if he is not concerned about the mercenaries leaving. The girl reminds him that he himself said it seems the young man ate a core and she is clearly very intrigued by the possibility that our Chad actually did it. The old monk stays silent for a moment before answering the question, explaining that simply eating a core does not automatically turn our Sigma into a dark priest. But Cindy says it is still dangerous because everyone loses control when they gain power, then closes her eyes and asks her teacher to be honest with her. She thinks he is protecting our boy because he wants to believe there is still humanity left inside that person. In that moment, the elder recalls a masked person from his past and stays silent with a very serious expression before turning and saying he does not want to continue that topic. The girl apologizes for her rudeness but wants to clarify one thing, saying if our Sigma does anything wrong, she will be the first to accuse him as a dark priest, and if that happens, even the elder who stood as his guarantor will not be able to escape. After giving the warning, the girl turns and leaves, leaving the old man alone. But the monk says with full confidence that will never happen to our Chad. He remembers our boy ate several cores but his mental world did not collapse and his humanity remained, and in the end that is the biggest proof of our Sigma's innocence. He thinks the world is not yet ready to accept someone like our guy, but the elder is certain that a great thing awaits him in the future. Meanwhile, our Sigma walks with the soldiers while the monk thinks about him, believing our Chad's power will be the hope of the world. The scene changes again and the first expeditionary force marches in formation. All the soldiers prepare for the battle that is about to begin, and one of the men says there is a right time for everything and now is the time to fight. The tips of the spears shine as the army prepares for battle. One soldier remembers what the hunter told him earlier to draw his sword, and afterward he firmly plants the spear in the ground as a signal to prepare, then points to his heart and tells him to eradicate evil. Our Chad suddenly hits his own head with a rock and the soldiers are shocked and confused by his sudden and unexpected action. The blood-covered rock falls to the ground after hitting our Sigma's forehead directly, and while blood covers his face, he calmly starts counting from 5 to 6. He continues counting and his wound gradually begins to heal, and just like that, his damaged forehead returns to normal. He says his new regeneration ability can heal small wounds in 10 minutes, then remembers the broken bone from the previous fight also healed quickly, and smiles, while thinking if he can regrow an arm in a month. Our boy realizes this is why eating monster cores is worth it, and he is eager to test his new ability in a real battle. One soldier jokes that he heard the nickname Head Crusher, but did not know it was our Sigma. While blood is still on his forehead, Chad apologizes for scaring everyone, but the red-haired man says it was only a test and introduces himself as Supreme Commander Roland, saying he likes geniuses, and every true genius needs a bit of madness. The commander explains that if Elder Bao himself recommended him, he must be extraordinary. Our Sigma prefers not to get too close to the man and asks what the mission plan is. Then Frolin smiles and says, as expected from a genius, he is direct and excellent, then explains they will enter the forest to destroy the rift cores there, and their goal is to finish the entire operation in 10 days or sooner. Our Chad thinks 10 days is long because the forest is not that big, and the commander agrees and once again praises the new recruit's genius. But a strange creature suddenly bursts out from the ground in front of them, and Roland explains that the creatures have already expanded their territory greatly. One soldier panics and shouts to warn the commander of the danger, and the armored man calmly draws his sword to face the threat. With one exact and clean attack, he splits the creature in two without any effort. Roland says the monsters in the depths appear because of the cores, and in that very moment several more creatures burst out from the ground and surround the group. The commander shouts that this is an ambush and orders everyone to prepare for battle. A terrifying monster charges at the soldiers with its sharp claws, and the creatures attack with full force, managing to wound some of the army's men. Our Sigma is surprised because these bloodsucker rats can now dig underground, and Roland orders them to fight back to back without hesitation. The soldiers quickly form a defense using their shields and spears to protect one another, and when one of the men is about to be attacked, our Chad suddenly appears to defend him. The commander shouts for our Sigma to be careful of the monster's attacks, and his eyes widen when he sees what will happen to our boy. The monsters leap together and surround our Sigma from all sides, attacking him non-stop with their sharp and dangerous claws and fangs. Roland is shocked and wonders if our Chad has completely lost his mind, but instead of fighting, our Sigma uses a dagger to absorb the energy of one monster. A blue light flashes as he steals the creature's ability for himself, and the surrounding monsters scream in pain while feeling our boy's power at work. While his eyes glow, he thinks if he can inherit the abilities of the monsters, but he decides the digging ability is not useful, and the only thing he sees are the cores in front of him. Our Chad grips a core embedded in one creature's flesh, bites into a leech rat's body while blue liquid sprays into his mouth. He crushes a shining core into his mouth while surrounded by rampaging monsters, explaining that inheritance happens when eating a monster core with a very small chance of gaining that monster's ability. Our Sigma holds a pulsing blue core in his hand and declares this is the real secret of how he survived the demonic realm for 10 years, then tilts his head while blood covers his face and breathes out gently. Our Chad stands surrounded by like rats and says he is starting to feel full, thinking he has eaten about 4 already and wondering if he should have gained the digging ability by now. A hand reaches toward him from above, while the monsters howl with open jaws, and a knight reaches him with his arm raised and shouts, asking if the mercenary is okay. Our Sigma stares ahead with wide eyes and blood on his face while shouting, asking what he is doing and that it is dangerous there and he is fine and to just keep the formation, while thinking he cannot secretly eat monster cores like this. The knight grabs our Sigma and quickly pulls him away while saying not to worry because they are safe. A group of musicians plays drums and string instruments while shining notes circle around them and the holy choir sings. Roland plays the violin with a calm expression while glowing musical notes swirl around him, and a hooded musician pulls the bow on a large string instrument behind another member of the choir. Roland tilts his head slightly with a small smile, while armored knights stand holding spears as leech rats charge at them, and someone shouts that he is overflowing with power while another one orders to wipe them all out. Our Sigma looks ahead with a surprised expression while shining notes float around him, realizing the soldiers' toughness and defense have greatly increased while thinking they must be receiving buffs from the holy songs. Roland tilts his head while playing the violin, and our Chad realizes this guy is really a supporter. A knight shouts loudly while the others behind him charge forward. A like rat gets hit in the air and blood sprays as the soldiers advance, and the order echoes for the whole army that it is time for a counterattack. The full moon hangs in the night sky above the trees. A pile of dead like rats lies on the ground while an announcement says they will record everyone's contributions and calls all who participated in today's battle to gather. A knight holds a megaphone and paper while speaking to the group, and explains that the recorded results will be the basis for their rewards, and he asks for everyone's cooperation. 2 men sit near a small fire beside the tents while one looks at his companion, and says seriously he really does not understand our Sigma, asking how he hits his own head with a rock and charges straight into the middle of the monsters. Our Chad kneels inside a tent and digs in the ground while dirt flies, and while someone asks why he is digging in the ground, he wipes his mouth with the back of his hand and frowns, saying he really did not get the digging ability, and it seems luck is really needed to get an inheritance. Roland stands nearby and looks at our Sigma while asking if his body is okay, and our Chad turns to him with a calm expression and says sorry if he surprised everyone earlier. Roland smiles slightly and replies not at all, saying the fight he showed today was impressive and that honestly when he jumped straight into the middle of the monsters, he thought our Sigma would die. Our Chad listens while Roland continues and says he heard he killed 2 leech rats alone. 2 men rest near the tent while one cleans his spear and says an ordinary soldier only killed 4 or 5 monsters, and even the Holy Knights only managed around 100 to 150. Roland tilts his head with a slight smile while saying prodigies really are different. Our Sigma turns and thinks prodigy my ass because if he had just focused on hunting instead of swallowing monster cores, the numbers would be reversed, then says yeah right Roland. He places one hand on his chest while looking at Roland and asks if he is part of the support force. Roland bows slightly with a confused expression and asks what about it and whether he is looking down on supporters. Our Sigma slightly raises his hand while calmly explaining he just thought Roland was the type interested in pure strength, so he was surprised because that was not what he expected. Roland closes his eyes and clenches his fist while a bead of sweat appears on his face and says it seems our Chad read him right away. He crosses his arms and looks to the side while admitting honestly he also wanted to be the type who holds a sword. While our boy gestures with his hand and asks then why not just hold a sword. Roland continues and says the problem is, then lowers his gaze with a serious expression while saying the reason the Order Alliance fights is for peace. Two figures stand in front of several graves under the moonlight while Roland explains that so many people lost their homes and died because of the demonic realm, and in this kind of world he chose the role where he can help the most people. Roland smiles with closed eyes while gesturing with his hand and says his sword skill is only slightly above average, but his music ability is considered the highest level even inside the Order Alliance. Our Sigma stares ahead while thinking when Roland kept mentioning prodigies he thought it would be annoying, then thinks this guy is actually nicer than he expected. The night sky spreads over the camp while the full moon shines brightly and Roland asks if he can watch his performance someday, and our Chad laughs while answering of course. Two flags wave in the wind against the dark sky, and the camp is visible where soldiers stand near the tents while the narration says after 1 week the tents stand under sunlight, while Roland explains they continue advancing into the demonic realm, while destroying many rift cores and encountering kobolds and large fanged monsters. Roland stands at the end of the table facing the group, and says the deeper they go the stronger the monsters become, then asks how the soldiers' morale is. An armored soldier gestures to Roland while reporting their morale is higher than when they first started, while another one hesitantly says well, and Roland replies asking what it is. A group of kobolds charged with raised weapons. Our Sigma swings his sword in a wide arc while many monsters get sliced and fly into the air as blood sprays. A massive rabbit-like monster with blazing red eyes leaps forward while our Chad prepares below it with his sword raised, then slashes upward with his sword as blood explodes around and bites a shining blue core. Our boy holds the core in his hand while looking at it with blood on his lips and says damn it, failed again. Roland looks ahead with a serious expression while someone says the mercenary handles every monster the moment they appear. Roland grins slightly while sighing, then throws his head back while laughing loudly and hitting the table while the others stand around him and ask if it hurts the pride of the Order Alliance to be outperformed by just one mercenary. A serious armored man crosses his arms and steps forward while saying this is not something to laugh about because the soldiers have become too complacent and the mercenary might claim a huge portion of the performance rewards. Roland calmly looks ahead while saying good things are still good, and because of our Sigma they had almost no casualties, and the appearance of stronger monsters means they are close to their destination. The camp is visible with tents and flags under the sky while Roland adds they should rest while they still have the chance. Or a very deep canyon drops between tall cliffs and several figures stand on top of tall stone pillars protruding from the depths of the canyon. A masked figure with a single eye symbol looks ahead while asking if the Order Alliance is heading there, then stands on top of a stone pillar in the canyon while turning to the side and asking how those people found this place. He stands on the pillar while facing a veiled woman below, and while looking ahead says they planted many rift cores around this area, so it is even more suspicious if they did not notice. The woman calmly closes her eyes while saying she still believes their youngest sibling expected this when she made her move. She opens her red eyes and smiles faintly while saying it is impossible for their chosen youngest sibling to be that skilled. Figures stand on tall stone pillars in the canyon while a lone man with a wide hat looks up from below. The man with the hat crouches on the pillar with one knee bent while looking ahead and saying not to worry because the defenders always have the advantage over the attackers. He lowers his head under the brim of his hat with a faint smile and says the enemy's reaction was only slightly earlier than expected, then raises his head and places one hand on his chest while saying no matter what it will not disturb the great plan of darkness. Roland stands in front of the soldiers and looks down with a tense expression. Thick white webs spread across the canyon walls while a distant figure looks down and asks what this is. The wide view of the canyon covered in massive webs appears while the soldiers' formation stands below and someone asks what kind of madness this is. The entire canyon is full of layered webs stretched between the cliffs while large spiders crawl on the threads below. Our Sigma stares at the web-covered canyon and says something is wrong with this whole place. Our boy explains that even with the advantage of fighting from high ground there is no point in digging such a deep hole just to make a hiding place if normal defense is the goal. Roland suggests maybe they are just trying to avoid being exposed, but our Sigma immediately counters and says if that is the reason they should have hidden through secret tunnels. Roland finds it hard to understand why anyone would build a fortress in this kind of location, and our Chad quietly warns that the whole place might be a trap. Roland's expression instantly freezes in confusion. The ground suddenly shakes from a massive explosion while they all turn back in shock, and a violent shockwave explodes across the entire field as the soldiers get thrown into the air like toys. Massive demonic monsters suddenly burst out from nowhere and a terrified voice immediately recognizes one of them as a Bigfoot. The giant monster towers over the entire field while a massive snake called Salmosa coils around its body, and just the Bigfoot's strength alone is enough to consider it a disaster-class threat, while the Salmosa has deadly poison and thick scales like armor. The Bigfoot raises its massive hand before slamming its fist hard into the ground while soldiers run in extreme fear. Its hand slides under a massive chunk of earth, and the Bigfoot roars and throws the soldiers into the air. The knights can only scream helplessly as they fall toward the depths of the canyon without any way to stop their descent. A terrified knight turns and sees a giant spider crawling toward him, and behind it, a massive spider with blazing red eyes and open fangs looms, causing him to scream in absolute terror. While desperate and chaotic, Roland watches his men falling into the canyon and orders everyone not to mind the chaos and focus the attack on the Bigfoot first. The others shout in panic to call the Holy Choir to give support buffs while warning that the Bigfoot is too big to face normally. Meanwhile, our Sigma just grins and says, "Bring it all out." A massive foot slams into the ground right in front of him and crushes the rock beneath it, and the Bigfoot charges together with the Salmosa toward our Chad while he watches them without the slightest hesitation. A crushing punch knocks our Sigma backward as the giant creature buries its fist directly into him. The nearby knights freeze in shock when they see our boy get thrown, and Roland turns pale while desperately shouting our Sigma's name in fear. But this monster is not an ordinary creature, since it is the biggest and strongest in the group, along with the giant snake coiled around its body. Our Chad just grins and reminds the creature that it chose the wrong opponent. Without hesitation, he leaps down into the deep canyon while drawing his sword, and the massive Bigfoot immediately follows. While falling, our Sigma embeds his sword into the canyon wall to slow his descent before running across the wall at impossible speed, then plants his foot on the rock while calmly watching the ruins and rock chunks falling around him. The Bigfoot uses the webs to descend the canyon at terrifying speed, and our Chad dodges the monster's attacks while realizing the creature combines brutal strength and unbelievable agility. Up close, the Bigfoot's raw power alone is enough to crush almost anyone, and when the giant snake suddenly charges and spits deadly poison, our Sigma blocks it with his sword, but smiles even wider because abilities like this are exactly what he has been looking for. Even while falling in the air, our boy stares at the monster with excitement and calls it very delicious. His body crashes straight into a massive spider web, and our Sigma kicks the web and pushes himself downward, then spins in the air and slams his feet hard against the canyon wall before striking the giant snake while in midair, causing it to plunge deeper into the canyon. Purple energy wraps around our Chad's hand while he calmly explains that when monsters team up in battle, not only does their strength increase, but they multiply it too. Our Sigma charges toward the falling monster and reveals that creatures like this have one weakness, then dives downward while purple energy wraps around his sword and points out that even for him it is hard to fight two bodies at once, and that the monsters also struggle to move as one creature. His eyes stare at the Bigfoot while he calmly says teamwork also collapses when facing real danger, because the instinct controlling everything takes over. It directly punches the snake's head with its massive fist, while our Sigma passes through its body with his sword and blood explodes around as the snake's head gets crushed by its own companion. For the first time, the giant creature looks stunned at what it did. Purple energy flares on our Sigma's sword while he reveals this is the right way to hunt two monsters at once. Our Chad unleashes a devastating purple slash that cleanly severs the Bigfoot's neck as it screams in intense pain, and its headless body collapses while blood gushes from the wound. When the dust finally settles, the chopped remains of the two monsters lie at our Sigma's feet while he calmly lowers his sword. A slight grin appears on his face, while admitting the gatekeeper was not bad either, but the purple energy around him suddenly changes color and he immediately notices that strange shift. Our Chad slowly turns toward the corpse while an unexplainable feeling envelops him, and he wonders why it feels so unsettling, then quickly shakes the feeling from his mind and bends down to grab the shining blue core. While leaning his back against the wall, he quietly swallows it as faint tremors spread through the entire cave. Dark purple power suddenly explodes around his body, and because of the shock he completely freezes, realizing he directly absorbed the monster's ability. He stares at his hand and thinks if he has now eaten so many monster cores that he can tell which one has inheritance just by feeling, and a wide grin slowly spreads across his face when he realizes what a huge reward he gained, and he prepares to test his new ability. A massive fireball suddenly rushes straight at him, causing him to freeze in place. The entire canyon explodes in a violent blast as fire engulfs our Sigma. A terrifying laugh echoes through the whole canyon while a mysterious figure watches with a twisted grin, and the man with the hat stands under the massive explosion while his laughter echoes in the cave. He mocks Chad for being complacent inside the enemy's territory and calls the human truly pitiful, but the mocking expression on his face quickly disappears. Lolgiel, a blazing figure, stands inside the fire while the enemy stares in extreme shock. Our Sigma emerges from the fire with skin like stone and says failed. Then while surrounded by fire, sighs in disappointment. The Dark Priest watches our Sigma while he stands in the middle of the blazing fire, and while surrounded by fire, our Chad examines the cracked stone-like layer covering his body. He grins and says even though it is not the ability he wanted, it still seems very useful, wondering if the new ability really blocked the fire. While staring at the massive fireball approaching above him, he adds it seems worth studying, but then tightens his grip on the hilt of his sword. The massive fireball explodes against his sword and releases raging flames. Our Sigma protects himself while fire and debris fall around him and grits his teeth while thinking maybe killing the spiders first is the only way, but it is almost impossible to do because of the Dark Priest. He realizes the fire has seriously damaged his internal organs, and both his regeneration and stone skin abilities are already reaching their limit. And the Dark Priest charges at our Chad again from the fire with a grinning face and launches another attack. Our Sigma blocks the incoming attack while the spider legs tighten around him. The Dark Priest grins under his hat and says, "Let us see." Then the spider legs slam down one after another around our Chad, while the Dark Priest asks how good he is in close combat. The blazing red eyes under the hat stare at our Sigma while many attacks rush toward him at once. Our boy grimaces while blocking and slashing the spider legs, and purple energy swirls around his sword while he swings it against the incoming attacks. He swings his sword upward wrapped in swirling purple energy, and it collides hard with the spider. Then a massive fire suddenly flares from behind him, and he gets surprised by it. Green poisonous gas explodes in the blazing area and causes another intense explosion as fire engulfs everything. Our Sigma protects himself while fire and debris fall around him, and the Dark Priest grins and says, "Excellent." While leaning on his sword, Chad's cracked stone skin remains intact while the Dark Priest thinks about whether a person who survives such an explosion can still be called human. The pieces of our Sigma's stone skin gradually fall beside his sword, and our Chad examines the fire around him, realizing combining the poisonous gas and fire created an even stronger explosion even against his stone skin. Half of our Sigma's face remains covered in cracked stone while he admits he should not underestimate Dark Priests. The Dark Priest suddenly charges at our Chad while he looks at him in surprise, and our Sigma blocks the incoming attack while spider legs tighten around him. The spider legs slam down one after another around our boy, while the Dark Priest asks how good he is in close combat, and our Sigma grimaces while blocking and slashing the spider legs. Purple energy swirls around his sword while he swings it against the incoming attacks and collides hard with the spider. Then a massive fire suddenly flares from behind him again. Green poisonous gas explodes in the blazing area and causes another intense explosion as fire engulfs everything once more. Our Chad protects himself while fire and debris fall around him. His cracked stone skin still intact while the Dark Priest cannot believe a person can survive something like that. The pieces of our Sigma's stone skin gradually fall beside his sword, and our boy admits again that he should not underestimate Dark Priests. Those spider legs suddenly slams down at incredible speed and the sharp leg heads straight for our Sigma's body, exploding with a huge amount of blood. Our Chad's sword slips from his hand and falls to the ground, and a wide grin appears on the Dark Priest's face. The dark spider legs pin our Sigma down while the Dark Priest laughs loudly. And while looking at the injured our boy, the Dark Priest says he is interesting, and now understands why they did not kill our Sigma immediately back then. Blood continues pouring from our Chad's body while the Dark Priest coldly says it is over. Our Sigma kneels in a pool of blood and listens while the Dark Priest says he has a special offer for him, with spider legs spread behind the Dark Priest as he offers to save our boy's life if he joins the Dark Priests. Lidiashikami's broken body is full of blood while he stays silent, staring back. A twisted grin appears on the Dark Priest's face while he says it should not be a bad offer for our Chad, because the ability to use skills is exactly why he is special. Spider legs spread behind the Dark Priest while he warns our Sigma that ordinary people will try to kill him the moment he uses that power. He stares coldly at our boy and says the Order Alliance only accepts him because they do not know yet that he uses monster core abilities. Our Chad stands beside the Elder while the Dark Priest asks if people will still look at him as human when everyone discovers the monster's core power. The Dark Priest extends his hand and tells our Sigma to team up with people in the same situation as him, grinning under his hat and promising to give him even greater power if he joins them. Our Chad sits in the middle of the fire, his wounds severe and breathing difficult, and while blood drips from his mouth, he weakly curses under his breath. He leans down and replies by asking why a clown like this talks so much, and the Dark Priest freezes in shock while our Sigma says this is not allowed, and he needs to teach him a lesson. Red light gradually spreads across our Sigma's face while he quietly admits he really did not want to use it. His eyes turn red while dark energy spreads like cracks across his face, and our Chad says, "But you left me no other choice." Fire rages across the entire canyon and a violent shockwave passes through the ground. Dark red energy suddenly explodes around the Dark Priest while he stares ahead in confusion, and red energy bursts from our Sigma like lightning and engulfs the entire area. The Dark Priest quickly covers his arm while stuttering in fear and saying no. His eyes widen in extreme shock while staring at the power enveloping our Chad. Red energy flows through our Sigma's entire body while pale scales spread across his skin, and he stands alone in the middle of the canyon. Our boy raises one hand while a massive wave of red energy explodes around him, and spider monsters crawl across the canyon walls above, while red lightning tears through their bodies. Red lightning engulfs the entire canyon wall, and a massive explosion of red energy crashes into the Dark Priest. The Dark Priest looks at the red lightning enveloping him with extreme shock while realizing the gap in their power is even larger than he thought, and he thinks about what kind of monster core gave our Sigma this kind of strength. The Dark Priest is surrounded by red lightning as our Chad suddenly charges inside the canyon at blinding speed. The dark priest screams in pain under the storm of red lightning, his face full of burns while he realizes it is too dangerous to stay there, so he immediately tries to escape. Our Sigma suddenly appears behind the dark priest and the guy becomes extremely shocked, quickly turning while unable to understand how our Chad got behind him. Our Sigma grabs one of the spider legs and while still gripping it tightly, he suddenly rips it from the dark priest's body as blood explodes from the torn wound. Our boy tightens his grip even more on another leg with crushing strength while the dark priest screams, and our Chad rips the spider legs one by one from his back as blood sprays. Blood explodes from the dark priest's back while he screams in intense pain. While still surrounded by red lightning, our Sigma quietly watches the escaping dark priest while he leaves a trail of blood behind. Shaking in fear, the injured dark priest begs our Chad to stop and desperately tries to negotiate, saying they both eat monster cores and they can still form a beneficial alliance. Our Sigma stands silently above him while red lightning crackles around his body and looks down with his blazing red eyes. Our boy says the only thing he can offer is information about the other dark priests, and the injured dark priest screams at our Sigma and angrily asks why he still sides with the humans when they both use the same power after all. Our Chad's blazing red eyes narrow while he coldly says he still has not answered his question. Sweat pours down the terrified dark priest's face while he quickly promises to obey everything our Sigma orders. Our Chad's arm suddenly pierces through the dark priest's body as blood explodes, and our Sigma remains with a calm expression while telling him he is giving him one chance. Red lightning explodes from our boy's attack as it hits the dark priest hard, and blood flows down the dark priest's face while he stares sharply back and curses our Sigma. The dark priest is surrounded by crackling red energy while our Chad quietly watches him gradually turn to ash. The pieces of our Sigma's scales break and disappear, and blood drips from his mouth while the scales around his neck continue crumbling. Our boy covers his mouth with one hand and breathes weakly while his battered body slowly collapses forward. The shockwave spreads through the entire mouth of the crater while our Sigma lies motionless in the middle of it, and while struggling to breathe on the ground, our Chad admits using that power is extremely exhausting. Blood flows from his eyes while he says that is exactly why he really did not want to use that power. The canyon gradually blurs in our Sigma's vision, while he realizes he cannot fall asleep there, and in his blurry vision he notices a group quickly approaching from afar. Through his almost closed eyes, he weakly recognizes Roland's face. Roland feels relieved when he sees our Sigma is still alive and immediately orders the others to bring a stretcher right away. Sweat pours down Roland's face while he weakly calls our Chad's name, standing beside our boy's fallen body. Roland looks at the massive traces of destruction on the canyon wall and wonders what kind of battle happened there. The scene shifts to the third pioneer city. Morning light enters the quiet room while our Sigma slowly opens his eyes under the blanket as sunlight hits the bed. Sitting up in the dark room, he breathes weakly while staring at his hand in disbelief, realizing he really survived. A helper by the door freezes in shock upon noticing our Chad is awake and quickly runs into the hallway while loudly announcing that the mercenary has finally woken up. Roland suddenly enters the room with intense worry on his face while shouting that our Sigma is awake. Sitting on the bed, our boy asks what happened, and Roland reveals he was unconscious for 3 full days. When he hears that our Chad realizes even his new regeneration ability could not stop the intense backlash, then asks if the expedition is over. Standing beside the bed, Roland assures him that most of the rift cores in the area have been handled and the expedition had almost no casualties. Then, smiling in relief, Roland thanks our Sigma and says everything went well because of his help. Our Chad grins back and jokes that he should be paid a big reward while thinking it really does not get old. Meeting and getting to know others. Before the conversation continues, the door suddenly opens and a man enters, introducing himself as a representative of the Order Alliance who came to take our Sigma's testimony about the expedition. Looking down at our boy, the investigator asks what kind of enemies he faced and orders him to tell every detail of the battle. Our Chad freezes for a moment in surprise, clearly careful about how much he should reveal, and while adjusting his glasses, the investigator explains they need a proper record because the battle was too chaotic for anyone to understand what really happened. While staring at our Sigma, he admits he still cannot believe the battle was supposedly between one person and a monster. Our Chad forces a smile while thinking they are still suspecting him, and he thinks bitterly that the happy ending did not last long either. He stays calm while quietly thinking what kind of lie he should tell. But in that moment, Elder Bao enters the room and gently says he will handle the situation. The investigator turns in surprise at the Elder's entrance and quickly speaks his title, and the investigator faces the old man and asks what he means. But Elder Bao immediately cuts him off and asks if what he said is not enough. Then a red aura fills the entire room while the Elder coldly tells him to leave. Shocked beside our Sigma's bed, the investigator quickly stutters and replies he understands. Dark clouds silently pass across the sky outside the window, and behind the glasses, Elder Bao remains sitting alone beside our Chad's bed after everyone leaves the room. Our Sigma forces a careful smile while thanking the Elder and saying he was worried there might be misunderstandings when he woke up, while thinking the old man seemed interested in him since they first met. The Elder calmly tells our boy not to worry. As he reaches inside his clothing, the Elder says that no matter what form our Sigma takes, he has already decided to trust him. Our Chad looks up in confusion as the elder suddenly pulls out a shining blue core and his eyes widen because he immediately recognizes what it is. Blue energy blazes around the core as the elder reveals that it is a monster core, explaining that he obtained it from the body of the dark priest that our Sigma killed. Our Chad's gaze suddenly sharpens in surprise as the elder admits he secretly set the core aside. The elder places the glowing core in our Sigma's hand while saying that for some reason he feels our boy will like it. While our Chad is being fitted, the strands of hair gradually fall from his shoulders and he tightens the gloves on his hands. Our Sigma wears perfectly fitted armor and listens as Elder Bao says it suits him perfectly and asks if he feels its effect. While looking at the armor, our Chad says it is more than comfortable and it feels as if the fabric has become part of his body. With one hand resting on the shoulder plate, he says that if he had known how wonderful it was, he would have commissioned his own outfit long ago. Elder Bao laughs and says that comfort is not the true value of those clothes. Our Sigma turns and asks what he means, and golden energy suddenly explodes behind him as a shining fist rushes straight at him, causing our Chad to stare at it in shock. The Elder's pump strike hits our Sigma's chest as golden energy explodes on impact and our boy coughs from the powerful force. Our Chad's eyes widen as he thinks whether this old man really just punched him after he was in a coma for 3 days, his brow furrowing in confusion before he pauses to think. When he looks at himself, he says he barely felt the hit, and the Elder explains that the armor is a relic. The armor glows wrapped in blue light as the relic is described as a rare and extremely valuable item blessed with magic. While leaning on his staff, the Elder explains that although it is as light as a monster's skin, it carries defense comparable to plate armor. While stroking the armor, our Sigma asks if relics like this are expensive, and the Elder answers that it is difficult to obtain one no matter how much gold a person has. When Cindy enters the room, she reveals that the relic is part of the reward for our Chad's mission, with its total value reaching 240 gold coins. A large chest full of gold coins and gold bars is open to show the reward. To staring at the overflowing chest, our Sigma asks in disbelief whether it is really okay for them to give him such a huge amount. Standing in front of him, the Elder says he earned it through the monsters he killed in the Rift Core, and by facing the Dark Priest, and adds that his contributions were far from ordinary. Cindy calmly adds that she also contributed a little from her own share. A drop of sweat rolls down Chad's face as he thinks that for a mission like this, the reward is almost unbelievable. While looking at Elder Bao and Cindy, he asks why they are so good to him, and says that excessive kindness always feels suspicious. His expression turns serious as he says that even though they know he eats monster cores, Elder Bao and Cindy simply look at him quietly while the tension in the room grows heavy. The Elder strokes his beard and laughs softly. The scene outside shifts to a large building as Elder Bao jokingly says he still gets scolded even though he treats our Sigma well. Under the bright full moon, 2 guards stand watch beside a checkpoint with torches, and one yawns while his companion asks if something moved over there. He is told it is probably just the wind, but the worried guard insists he really saw something move. While the other tries to dismiss it, a chain suddenly wraps around his neck and cuts off his words. The chain digs into his throat and he can only let out a labored gasp. A cloaked figure pulls the chain, which causes the guard's head to snap, and chains whirl around the blonde man as blood splashes and a grin slowly widens on his face. The remaining guard backs away facing the blonde man and screams, asking who is attacking them, and a blood-covered iron ball slams into his head, which sends his helmet flying into the air. The moonlit gorge falls silent for a moment while the blonde man holds the bloody iron ball and his 2 companions stand beside him. Looking ahead, the veiled woman says it is hard to believe they were defeated by such worthless people. The bruised face of a dark priest appears as she refers to him as their youngest, and standing atop the ruins, she coldly says he is complete garbage. The blonde man turns to the veiled woman and says there are probably stronger opponents than the low-level knights guarding the place. The masked man dismisses it and says it does not really matter because he already expected them to lose, and the 3 figures stand under the gorge as the masked man says their plan for the youngest defeat should only go this far. Blue energy swirls around the masked man's head as he places one hand on the stone wall and says it is time for them to move. Kurumage, a shining blue symbol appears on the rock glowing with magical energy, and the glowing blue runes spread throughout the gorge. The masked man faces a massive glowing formation while the blue runes continue spreading across the wall, expanding across the entire side of the gorge and filling the surroundings with blue light. The masked man raises his hand and declares that it is time to begin their plan to annihilate all the people. Rows of bound people lie on stone tables as their screams echo inside the chamber, and a bottle full of glowing blue liquid sits beside various medical equipment. The scene changes and shows a large, brightly lit building under the night sky, and from a high window, Elder Bao begins to explain what he means. Standing around a table, the Elder tells our Sigma that although he has no right to scold him, he has one favor to ask. And looking directly at our boy, the Elder requests that he use his extremely powerful ability for the sake of humanity. While holding a cup of tea on the table, our Chad thinks that in the past he feared he would be tortured once others learned he consumes monster cores. And he also remembers that instead of judging him, they asked him to use that power to help humanity. A slight smile appears on his face as he admits he feels nothing but gratitude. Facing the elder, our Sigma asks if anyone else knows his secret and learns that only the two of them know. While listening quietly, Cindy explains that other people would probably not react the same way, and our Chad agrees. He leans forward in his seat and asks exactly how what he can do will help. The elder places a glowing blue core on the table and reveals that it belongs to the Dark Priest. Then standing beside the table, the elder explains that consuming a monster's core can sometimes grant its memories, although the chance is very small. He adds that if the monster core comes from a former human, the probability of obtaining its memories is much higher. Dark Sigma remembers the memories he saw from Golden Bug's children, and realizes that was the reason it happened. While holding the core, our Chad asks if they want him to eat it to gain information about the Dark Priest, and standing beside Cindy, the elder says the decision is up to him. The blue core rests in our Sigma's palm as he thinks that not only has he found people he can talk to comfortably, but he can also obtain the monster core he missed before. Purple energy swirls around him as our boy grins and says he has no choice but to eat the monster core for everyone's benefit. Of course, he bites into the blue core, and suddenly, a very tall tower appears in his vision while a voice declares that he also wants to be chosen, and does not want to live as a worthless failure. On a balcony, a kneeling man shouts that he wants real and immense power, and a frightened man looks up as a woman asks him if that is so. Holding a glowing blue vial, she softly tells him to prove it. Our Sigma's eyes narrow as he processes the memories that gradually emerge. Elder Bao and Cindy look down at our Chad and ask if he is okay. Sitting on the bed, our Sigma says he learned something which surprises the two, and sweat rolls down our boy's face as he reveals that he learned the Dark Priest's next plan. So under the cloudy sky, a luxurious mansion stands. While walking along the stone path with the elder and Cindy, the elder asks if our Sigma is sure, and our Chad firmly answers yes, he is sure. Our boy leads the group and says the fight is merely a distraction while the Dark Priests carry out another plan. Holding a sealed letter, our Sigma reveals that the target is a long-standing tradition held after an expedition, and the image of armored soldiers enters his mind. Elder and Cindy fall silent as our Chad warns that the Dark Priests plan to attack the Archbishop's banquet and annihilate the high-ranking officials there. A massive shadowy figure with horns and blazing eyes looms over the mansion, and its enormous hand stretches toward it. While continuing to walk with the others, Elder Bao says that if it is a banquet, the security there must be very strong, and asks if their military strength is really that large. Our Sigma answers that he has not seen the exact scale of it, but when he mentions the man wearing an iron mask, the figure standing behind the elder appears in his memory. The veiled woman behind Cindy appears in our Chad's memory while mentioning that the woman connected to the death of Golden Bug's children is also there, and that those two seem like extremely powerful warriors. Doubt-Tu thinks while stroking his chin as he quietly examines the plan to attack the banquet. Looking ahead with a serious expression, Cindy warns that she thinks the situation is too dangerous to face alone, and suggests informing the Order Alliance and immediately canceling the banquet. Our Sigma and the others stop walking as Bao strongly rejects it and says that cannot be done, explaining that if they report it, our Chad's ability to eat monster cores will be exposed and they might even be accused by the Dark Priests. While walking together through the garden, Elder Bao adds that if they cancel the banquet, the enemy might simply move to a backup plan and they will be back to square one. Our Sigma turns to the others and asks them what they should do, and standing under the open sky, Bao says they need to use the information our boy provided. The elder raises his head and declares that since they know the rats are coming, they only need to prepare a mousetrap. Night falls over the city while a brightly lit castle stands tall above the rooftops. Inside the banquet hall, elegant guests gather under a massive chandelier, and wrapped in a dark cloak, our Sigma walks through the crowd and quietly surveys the entire hall. While walking through the banquet, the nearby NPCs recognize him as the mercenary from the expedition who made a huge contribution, although some say his appearance is younger and less impressive than expected. Two women whisper behind a fan, repeating the rumor that he turns into a monster when the battle starts, while one jokes about approaching him. When he hears someone call his name, our Chad turns with a puzzled expression. Roland puts an arm around our Sigma's shoulder and cheerfully greets him as the star of the expedition, teasing him for only showing up now after the fight. While still hugging our boy, Roland laughs and says he thought he had died, and our Sigma grins and asks Roland if he was really worried about him, and apologizes for everything becoming too chaotic. Still leaning on our Chad, Roland admits he was worried, and says the battle was no joke. Wide, he leans closer and the smile fades from his face as he asks what is really going on. While our Sigma looks back at him puzzled, Roland glances at the upper floor and says it seems their genius has a tail following him. A golden-haired man watches from the balcony while sipping red wine, and Roland introduces him as an inquisitor. Our Chad looks up at the balcony and says the man looks quite diligent for suspecting him, just because of his overwhelming strength. Roland waves casually and apologizes for the grumpy members of the Order Alliance who did not even join the expedition, then smiles and says our Sigma should not be too hurt by the doubts thrown at him. Our boy listens quietly as Roland says none of that changes the fact that he fought for so many people, and our Chad replies that he truly appreciates it. A loud rumble suddenly echoes from the doors of the banquet hall, and as the guests turn toward the entrance, someone announces that the Archbishop has arrived. A priest in magnificent robes descends the grand staircase with followers trailing behind him, and the newcomer is introduced as Archbishop Conrad. Conrad smiles and greets the guests who return the greeting, and he asks if everyone is enjoying the banquet. With a warm smile, Conrad says this gathering is for all of them, and he hopes they will enjoy it. Our Sigma stands quietly beside the elder while observing the surroundings, and the elder slightly turns his head as his expression becomes more serious. Though while our Chad carefully watches the atmosphere, he thinks it has reached its peak, and it is time to prepare for the enemies he expects to arrive. Under the moonlight, several cloaked figures watch the brightly lit mansion from a hill, and wrapped in black cloaks, the dark priests advance together into the night. Inside the hall, a knight hurriedly approaches Archbishop Conrad and shouts that there is trouble. Conrad turns to the knight and softly asks what happened, and while struggling to explain, the messenger quickly reports that a massive swarm of abominations has appeared at the northern gate of the city. Archbishop Conrad's expression hardens in shock as the report sinks in. The massive gate gives way after repeated impacts, and a huge swarm of abominations with glowing red eyes rushes through the open passage. Chaos erupts among the guests throughout the banquet hall as they scream that abominations are attacking the city and ask what is happening. Meanwhile, a slight smile appears on our Sigma's face as he remains calm in the midst of the commotion. Sitting with our Chad and Cindy, the elder says no matter how sudden the enemy's attack is, it is impossible for them to break through the strength of all the knights assigned to the banquet. The elder explains that in that case there is only one step they can take, which is to create chaos in another part of the city, and his face remains calm as he says that once the soldiers are forced to split up, there will be an opportunity to attack the banquet hall itself. Archbishop Conrad immediately issues an order commanding the forces to stop the abominations at all costs, even if it means transferring some of the troops guarding the banquet. The elder explains that the most important thing is to prevent the troops from spreading out. However, since the banquet is under the Archbishop's authority, he has no power to command the soldiers. While calmly holding a cup of tea, Cindy says she will handle that problem, and a slight smile appears on her face as she says they need to act before the enemy's numbers overwhelm the knights' determination. Meanwhile, several glowing objects cling to the tower wall under a bright window, and they suddenly flare brightly as a voice says it is enough to blow up the banquet hall first. A tremendous explosion erupts from the building, which engulfs it in flames and sends debris flying, and large chunks of the ceiling collapse inside the hall as the terrified guests scream in chaos that the ceiling suddenly caved in. An armored knight raises his sword and shouts to protect the officials, and while frightened guests crowd behind him, Cindy stands in the middle of the smoke and debris staring around with a shocked expression. While observing the situation, our Chad notices that the plan has succeeded because the knights have not left their posts. On the other hand, several cloaked figures quickly run across the rooftops, and not far away the banquet hall burns from the bright explosion, so they stop and look at it in confusion. While staring at the explosion, a man asks if that is part of their plan, and a slight smile appears on the woman's face as she thinks whether their enemies have already learned they are coming. A gloved hand grips a weapon as blue light sparkles around it. Our Sigma removes his cloak and walks down the hallway while holding a large sword, his red eyes gleaming as he grins and says it is time to catch the rats. The castle is on fire and 3 cloaked figures watch it all from a rooftop. One of them says it feels like the enemy knew they were coming. Maybe there's a traitor in the group. The masked leader decides to shut the operation down and orders everyone to fall back and regroup. The blonde guy complains that he finally got fired up for nothing, calling it annoying, then suddenly tenses up and blocks an incoming blade with his chain. Dark figure leaps across the rooftops. That's our guy. Woojin lands and confronts the group, calmly telling them it's easy to get in but hard to get out. The redhead baddie recognizes him from the Golden Bug Sun incident, and her eyes go wide as she realizes their plan got leaked because of him. A streak of gold cuts across the sky, and Elder Bo drops in and slams a strike into one of the dark priests, telling him it's been a while. Vikram just stares, jaw dropped. Woojin asks Bo if he knows the guy, and Bo tells him they share a terrible connection. He reveals Vikram used to be his disciple, a Vritra monk. Vikram scoffs at the word disciple and tosses his cloak aside, saying it doesn't matter whether those memories belong to the past, since they don't change anything now. He touches his mask and says he still knows how to get under this old hag's skin. Woojin realizes Vikram is using the same mind's eye technique Bao uses and wonders if it's connected to the monster core Vikram absorbed from a dark priest. Dalba tells Woojin he'll take Vikram, leaving the other 2 for him. Bao and Vikram charge at each other, while the chain blonde guy grins, thrilled that this is exactly what he wanted. The woman challenges Woojin, then her eyes glow and she transforms into a massive panther. Woojin thinks their abilities would have caught him off guard if he wasn't prepared, but he already knows what they can do thanks to Enoch's memories. He spots one more problem, a heresy inquisitor, watching from behind a wall nearby. The blonde guy hurls his mace at Woojin, who notes he can't use his monster core abilities in this fight, and instead knocks the mace aside with his sword, which visibly surprises the blonde guy. The panther charges in with claws out, certain he won't dodge the next hit even if he sees it coming. Blood sprays from Woojin as he takes a hit, and he thinks this could get messy, then grins, comparing the pressure to a nightmare he went through 12 years ago. His eyes flash red as he admits to himself it's been a while since he actually felt like fighting. Meanwhile, Bo and Vikram keep clashing. Bo says Vikram's habit of overcommitting and chasing novelty hasn't changed, but Vikram calls that mindset old-fashioned. Bo insists it's not stubbornness, so Vikram elbows him and calls it individuality, sending Bo flying like a dead bug. Bo steadies himself and repeats the word individuality, admitting he once wanted to support that path, since a new path is hard but can create miracles. Then he says Vikram's impatience and greed tainted that individuality, and that dirty tricks built on lies always collapse eventually. Golden symbols bloom around him as he declares this will be his final lesson, revealing the technique's mind's eye, which is called the all-seeing eye. Vikram recognizes it and notes it can only be used after reaching the highest realm, remarking that the old man's gotten stronger, which is exactly the problem. Then his own orange-gold symbol swirls into view, shocking bots, as Vikram reveals he has his own version of the same technique, and declares that a perfect lie eventually becomes the truth. The mark on his forehead glows, and the old hag is stunned, and is left struggling to understand how that's even possible. Glowing symbols spread across the rooftop, as Vikram calmly wonders aloud whether Ba really believed he was the only one who could use this technique. The bowl snaps at him to stop talking nonsense, then explains the all-seeing eye isn't just for reading mana, since it also reads blood flow and muscle movement, letting its user predict every move. It's Vitra's ultimate technique, but he admits it's incredibly hard to use, since it slowly eats away at the user's lifespan. He calls it a cruel technique and declares this fight only ends when one of them dies. Blood drips from his mouth as he asks if Vikram has any complaints, and Vikram answers calmly that he won't be the one dying. Orange energy swirls around Vikram as he activates his version of the technique, Mind's Eye Countdown, creating afterimages that surge forward. Bull does the same, and both of them stand on opposite ends of the rooftop while their afterimages clash violently above. Orange and gold figures collide again and again, and the exchange lands hits on both fighters at once, blood spraying from their mouths. Vikram remarks that Bo looks like he's struggling. Bo admits he's not what he used to be, but acknowledges how much Vikram has grown, adding that he still chose the wrong opponent. Their afterimages clash again, and Bo reminds him he's watched him grow since childhood, saying that even if he can't maintain the technique for long, nobody understands Vikram better than he does. He calls him a pitiful fellow and declares his wandering ends here. A symbol flashes overhead and golden afterimages close in from every direction as Bo calls it checkmate. Vikram realizes he'll have to take at least one hit, so he punches through the least dangerous afterimage to minimize the damage, but another one strikes him from behind, its palm slamming into his back and sends a shockwave through his body. He cries out in pain and stumbles, then everything goes dark. Vikram finds himself alone in a silent void, confused and unable to feel anything. He realizes the last hit alone shouldn't have been enough to kill him. He wonders if that one mistake cost him the entire exchange. Before he can process it, countless golden afterimages rush at him from every direction and he curses and braces for it. A massive pillar of golden force crashes down and explodes. Blood bursts from his mouth, and he's launched into the air before crashing into a crater. Barely conscious, he realizes his heart has ruptured. Bose approaches and Vikram looks up in alarm, but instead of finishing him off, Bo just sits down next to him. Vikram gets stunned and asks what he's doing. Bo stays quiet for a moment, then wonders aloud whether Vikram really thought a master would refuse to see off his disciple, even as enemies. Vikram stays silent, staring through his cracked mask and softly speaks Bo's name. His mind drifts to the past, to how cold it was the day he was abandoned as a kid, clinging to an adult's robe while his parents walked away and never looked back. From that day on, he trained obsessively, terrified that if he became useless, he'd be abandoned again. He followed Bo everywhere, but no matter how hard he pushed himself, the old monk never even glanced his way. Back in the present, Vikram weakly wonders whether Bo really couldn't have given that pitiful kid even one word of encouragement. His fist trembles as he admits all he ever wanted was for someone to tell him he was doing well. Bo goes quiet, then admits he'd known everything all along. He recalls watching Vikram wake before dawn to train and refuse to quit, even against seniors far stronger than him. He says that because he believed only strength mattered, he chose not to react. Calling him a foolish fellow, Bo finally admits the truth that Vikram was always his most cherished disciple. That moment settles under the moonlit sky as smoke still rises from the wrecked castle. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Black Panther and the chained blonde guy are still going at it with Jin, and the Panther notices flames flickering around his hand, wondering if it's connected to Enoch's fire magic. A massive iron ball comes flying at Wu Jin, who channels flame into it and redirects it, then draws his sword and purple mana lights up the blade. His sword clashes against the Panther's claws, leaving sparks flying everywhere. The Heresy Inquisitor watches from a distance, stunned that Wu Jin is combining second circle magic with mana arts, and starts doubting his own theory that Wu Jin's a dark priest. Wu Jin notices this and smiles, realizing he's made the Inquisitor second guess himself. Fireball is still burning in hand. He thinks that the firepower came from a monster core, but humans can use it too, then turns his focus to figuring out how to actually beat the Panther with it. The Dark Priest laughs it off, mocking Wu Jin, and insisting a cheap trick like that won't turn the fight around. The Panther charges while the chained iron ball comes rushing in, so Wu Jin pours fire into it again and redirects it, grinning as he calls the Dark Priest an idiot, saying it's not about how flashy the ability is, it's about who's using it. His sword slams into the Panther's claws again, sparks flying, and he follows up with an upward slash, The Panther's eyes widen, realizing Woojin's speed has completely changed. But even so, Woojin knows one solid hit from either of them could kill him. Dark Priest keeps swinging the iron ball, and Woojin keeps pouring fire into it. Waiting for a single opening, he swings his blade to startle the Panther, using the moment to set up his counter. The Panther realizes Woojin's catching up to its speed and decides it needs to go even faster, so the Dark Priest excitedly hurls the burning ball straight at him. Woojin watches it hang overhead as the Panther races in beneath it, then grins and with a single slash cuts through both the iron ball and the Panther at the same time. Blood sprays from the Panther's face as it staggers back with a pained cry. Priest screams out her name in horror. Woojin, grinning, admits he'd been counting on their overconfidence the whole time, mocking them for thinking the mace alone would be enough. He calls them fools and charges in while pointing out that iron is extremely weak against heat. The Dark Priest freezes in shock as he looks over at the beaten Vikram and the fallen Panther woman. He realizes with horror that they both have kicked the bucket. He gets panicked and throws himself off the rooftop, desperate to survive no matter what, crashing into the street below. Townspeople gather, confused about who just fell from the sky, then recognize him as the man who'd been fighting moments earlier. Terrified, he starts swinging his chain mace wildly, warning everyone to get out of his way or die, then bolts through the streets trying to escape. The chains tear through buildings, smashing walls and sending debris flying everywhere, while the townspeople scream and scatter. Woojin races across the rooftops after him, with his word in hand. His expression hardens as he realizes what's happening below. The Dark Priest is charging straight at civilians, recklessly swinging his chains, while an old man carrying a young boy desperately tries to outrun the chain, closing in behind them. Woojin realizes that if he doesn't go all out here, innocent people are going to die. At the same time, the Heresy Inquisitor is chasing through the streets too, and Woojin knows that revealing his true power here means exposing who he really is. He doesn't hesitate, and leaps off the rooftop. Red energy erupts around him as he grins, deciding there's no point hesitating anymore, and commits fully to the fact that he chose to live as a human. The old man and the kid freeze, staring wide-eyed at the crimson aura rushing toward them. The Inquisitor stops in shock as the red energy appears beside him, and the Dark Priest is equally stunned as the aura surrounds him. Realizing exactly what kind of power this is, Dark Sigma lands and quietly calls out to him. The Dark Priest hesitates, then answers nervously. Woojin makes it clear he isn't the target, and the raging crimson energy engulfs the Dark Priest instead, who screams as it burns away his face, revealing a skull underneath. The Heresy Inquisitor stands there drenched in red, while Woojin looks unfazed as thunder rumbles somewhere behind him. The scene shifts to a grand cathedral-like building, then to Woojin walking through its halls, wondering how it all came to this. The scene goes back to a woman with lavender hair sipping tea and remarks that even if this particular incident hadn't happened, Woojin would have been discovered eventually, since someone like him can't stay hidden forever no matter how hard he tries. Dark in the present, Woojin walks forward calmly and thinks about Archbishop Conrad, whose aura feels completely different from when he saw him at the banquet hall. He picks up on the emotion radiating off him and figures out that it's anger, the kind of anger that comes from someone who lost family and home to the demonic realm. Woojin tells himself he needs to be careful, since one wrong word could get him killed on the spot, so he decides not to speak more than necessary. Conrad looks at him and asks bluntly if he's a Dark Priest, and Woojin thinks the man is getting straight to the point. Woojin answers plainly that he's not. Conrad presses further, asking how he's able to use the power of karma if he isn't one. Kneeling in the hall, Woojin explains that a long time ago he wandered the demonic realm, and back then he was starving, so he ate monster cores after seeing beasts eat them too. Dark figure leaps across the rooftops. That's our guy. Another shouts that he's confessed with his own mouth to eating monster cores and calls for his head to be cut off right away. Woojin watches the chaos unfold and thinks they're reacting exactly as he expected. He studies Conrad's face, which has shifted into something more thoughtful, and wonders if the Archbishop is actually considering his words. He reasons that if Conrad had really wanted him dead, he would have sent him straight to execution instead of summoning him here to talk. So if he plays this right, there might be a way through this. Dominator footsteps echo down the hall and someone recognizes the figure approaching as the Heresy Inquisitor. Others mutter that nothing good has ever come out of that man's mouth. The Inquisitor steps forward anyway, adjusts his glasses and swears before the God of Harmony to speak nothing but the truth. Conrad allows it, and the Inquisitor states plainly that it's true. This man used the power of a monster. Yuijin's expression tightens, thinking that this guy just keeps picking out the worst possible details to say. But the Inquisitor isn't finished. He adds a however, and everyone in the room reacts with surprise. He explains that despite everything, it seems the man is still human. He points out that Woojin took part in the first expedition and contributed more than almost anyone else, and that even knowing his identity might be exposed, he still used his power to save people. He adds that Woojin can also use magic and mana arts, which convinces him that he's still human. The room erupts. Officials shout that the Inquisitor must have lost his mind, accusing him of taking a bribe and mocking his own title, but the Inquisitor just tells them to shut up. He insists that he's merely stating what he observed. Just then, Conrad finally speaks again. He first apologizes for deceiving the Order Alliance, but says he believes this mercenary's power could become a great asset to them. That sets off another round of outrage, with officials yelling that this isn't an opportunity, it's a threat, An old hag snaps that if Conrad truly believed his power could benefit the Alliance, he should have reported it from the very beginning, and asks why he hid it. Conrad admits plainly that something did bother him, but he points out that everyone in the room is fixating on individual words while ignoring the full context, cutting off the beginning and the end of the story just to scream for an execution. He calls them out directly, and one official mutters that this guy is unbelievable. Conrad silences the room with a single word, enough, asking him to confirm his name is Kim Woonjen. Woonjen confirms it. Conrad then asks him, without warning, how strong he believes himself to be. Our guy is caught off guard by the sudden question and thinks that this is a moment where modesty might be expected, but he decides not to lie either, so he answers honestly that he thinks he's quite useful. Conrad's expression shifts and he says quite useful. Before declaring that he's made his decision, he states that mercenary Kim Woojin is undoubtedly a dangerous individual, but calling him a dark priest given everything he's done would be unreasonable. Standing before the room, Conrad issues his ruling in the name of Archbishop Conrad, commanding mercenary Kim Woojin to join the 2nd Expeditionary Force and fight at its forefront, to prove that he stands on the side of justice. Woojin absorbs the order and immediately questions it internally, since the first expedition only just ended, and now there's already a second one being launched. Something about the timing feels off to him, and he thinks it smells kind of fishy. He senses a strange aura and wonders if it's Duke Edwin Reventor.